Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Garrett Mitchell on the first pitch of the sixth inning. A drive to center. It is back and it is gone. Garrett Mitchell with his fifth home run of the season, and the Brewers on top 3-1. Here's the 1-0 and a swing and a ball well hit. Deep left field. That ball is gone. It's a home run for Tommy Pham. Left field. Thomas with a drive into deep left field. This ball gone. A line drive. 3-run homer to left by Lane Thomas. Here's the 1-0 and a swing and a ball well hit. Deep left field. That ball is gone. It's a home run for Tommy Pham. Left field.
Oh, it's pretty electric. You know, that was. I mean, this place is already special, and just there was a different energy there. I mean, with the 94 squad, I mean, the students were awesome. Looking back at the film, there's times where their offensive line, they were totally discombobulated. You can see. So I truly believe that just the atmosphere of the crowd had a huge effect on those guys.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. You can catch us on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. What's up, DB?
Hi, bud. How you doing?
Oh, we're doing all right.
Good.
Halfway through the week here.
Already?
We're getting there. We're doing things.
Yes, we are.
Are you guys Thursday or Friday this week?
We are Friday this week, Thursday next week.
I would say it's only a handful of Friday games for you this week or this year.
Well, it's even. Five and 4.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot of Thursdays, though.
4 in a season is a lot. I mean,
well, especially because you guys don't share a field.
Right.
For some of the like Millard and Lincoln schools, it's pretty common, right? But
yeah, we are not out at Sechrist and we are not at Buell, although we are
at
Buell
next week,
tomorrow,
right?
or
Friday.
Yep. No, we got Bellevue West after that.
There you go. A little Millard West action this week.
Yeah, Millard West, Bellevue West. Somebody.
Can't look too far ahead.
No, I just know. I just know we got Bellevue West and Central. We got Elk South coming up. It's a gauntlet. We earned it, so let's get it.
I was gonna say that's you gotta come for the top spot.
Sometimes, I try to practice. Hi, Shane. Good morning. Shane's head looks extra huge today, doesn't it?
Good morning.
What's it?
Maybe put like a magnifying glass in that window so it's like amplifying for us. You know?
Oh, come on, Shane.
So I get, as people have access to me, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes, I entertain thoughts, respond, and whatever, right? So I got a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he's young. He's very, what I would call emotional.
Okay.
So he's a huge fan. I mean, like all in.
Mm-hmm.
And he's that generation of the next generation that you want in.
A huge Nebraska fan.
Yep.
Okay.
Little guy, the whole nine, like all in. So sometimes I'll occasionally turn my comment sections on, because if you want to know sometimes what I'm not good at,
mm-hmm.
it is filtering. Like a lot of things happen before I get here. It's almost uncanny,
mm-hmm.
right? It's just telling you about my conversation with Coach Rule, right?
Yeah.
Like that's whatever, 5:30, whatever. So you asked me how I'm doing, and I'm thinking about this, and I read it, and then it makes me mad at Severe, and Severe's not even in the conversation. That's listen, that's the kind of stuff that happens.
Okay, tell me how we got to Severe.
All right, so listen.
Yeah.
So we've been going back and forth the last couple of days about him overreacting.
Okay.
I'm like, hey, you can't overreact. You just
the young fan overreact.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. We'll call him
Jimmy.
Yeah, we'll call him Jimmy for now. I'll never say his name because
that's fine.
He's a good, we trust each other. So he shall remain nameless, but he's like, hey, we got some problems. Like you got to put McGuire's on. This was Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, McGuire's got to be on notice. This guy, Foley's got to be on notice. This, that, and the other. So I respond. I'm like, hey, listen, you know, McGuire didn't forget how to coach overnight.
Mm-hmm.
His guys didn't have a great night. Right? Stop reading into the Aaron Murray BS. Like, whatever. That guy does. He did a breakdown
mm-hmm.
of a throw versus cover 2 that I talked about real time on the broadcast. Like, what he's doing is not rocket science.
No.
He has the advantage of going back to an all 22 and slowing it down, and good on him, man.
I do think it's novel for some people.
I don't. Yeah, that's fine. But don't. But know your audience.
Yeah, 100%.
Know your audience.
Yeah,
don't be like
for. Not. I don't want to say casual,
it's not for me.
Yes,
it's not 100%. For me. So whatever that
not
is.
For coaches.
So don't. Number one, don't use that as a way to. Because I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Okay. But that's not even really the point. So we're talking. I'm like, you know, they had a bad night and this, that, and the other. Like, we need context. And I said, you got to stop overreacting, right? Like, it's early.
Mm-hmm.
Let's ride this out. So this morning, he hits me with, no, this was last night. I was watching volleyball. He says, Rule also telling the offense to get on Rayola's level and being prepared should be a huge wake-up call to Satterfield. Is that how you took that?
Not at all.
Not even remotely, right?
That wouldn't
okay, but let me finish.
Ever crossed my mind.
But let me finish.
Yeah.
Let me tell you how I'm going to drag the light-skinned guy into this. And I blame my man Jimmy on this. He goes, I'm with Severe on this. He ain't it. Compare him to White, ? My goodness. It's night and day. Nice guy, bad OC. His track record proves that. See, so now I'm mad at Severe.
Yeah, for keep putting that out there.
Which is fine, because
he's entitled to his opinion.
But don't base it on Saturday.
Yeah, which Severe doesn't.
I don't know.
Well, I had a whole conversation with him.
No, I know he's never liked him,
right?
Which is okay. So my response to that is, you have to be able to stay in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I say this all the time. You cannot like somebody or some things and still eat the meat and spit out the bones.
Mm-hmm.
Whether Sat turns out to be Norm Chow or not is not the issue. It's know why you're saying what you're saying.
100%.
So if you don't like him as a play caller, or you don't like somebody because something, let's keep it to that right here.
Mm-hmm.
Did you not like the 3x1 bubble screen? Did you not like situationally it meant that you should do this, or you liked when he did this but not this? Like, just because you don't like the guy, how does that pertain to what went on the other night? Like, don't let that other stuff be the reason for your treason, because when do coaches shake that? Like, when do coaches get the opportunity to, like,
oh no, I've grown, or I've evolved, or I'm good at what I do?
Or what if it's the other way? What if they were good at one point, and now the results don't matter? Are they all of a sudden not good? Like, does it go both ways?
I mean, it should, but I don't think it does.
It doesn't. It doesn't. That's why I have a hard time having conversations with people that can't, like, fair is kind of a baby word. I'm like, it's not fair. But I can't intelligently have conversations with people that can't see both sides of that pendulum swinging.
I like to use the term logical, right? Like, if you can logic out, like, okay, I understand this side of the argument.
Does it sound does that take sound irrational?
Yeah.
Right. So you can't.
It's not logical.
You can't rationalize with irrational people.
So, you know what's kind of funny about the whole Aaron Murray, Marcus Satterfield thing is I actually watched that tape and I was like, oh, his play calling's better than I thought.
Because you have some sense.
Because I'm like, you know, like because everybody was freaking out about like the swing passes, especially to Fedoni, right? In week 1.
How many of those were behind the line of scrimmage? Like, do you like,
but then Murray shows the clip and it's like, oh, if Jamal Banks and I think Nair was on the other side had even touched the defensive backs, much less just
the guy's banging his head on the goalpost.
It's just full house call.
So
So I saw that and I was like, oh, so that's a good play setup.
Okay,
that's a good play design.
Now listen, don't validate your boy. Right?
No, I'm not. That's what I thought real time.
Time out.
Yeah.
Don't validate your boy. But what did I tell you yesterday? What did I say Monday morning? Hey, man, I can see what they see. If they do this,
you told me that Saturday.
100%.
Like real time. I think you told me at halftime.
I'm like, oh fudge, I can see what the the game plan is.
If they get a couple blocks on the perimeter, those are house calls.
These are all she wrote.
Yeah,
and they're getting the ball to dynamic players.
To Fedoni, who they think is a dynamic, and Barney,
out in space.
100%.
Right, that was the plan. You just didn't plan on getting whipped on the perimeter because you went in thinking that was your advantage. You did. I already know. Like I'm. Hey, we want to do this on the perimeter. And both offensive and defensive coaches said it.
They said it out loud. Yeah, we want to make their corners tackle.
So
they're like, Shadour's a great player, or not Shadour. Travis is a great player, but like he's a great cover guy. So he's not huge. Let's make him tackle big guys.
If you know that going in, and you just don't get it done,
that doesn't mean it's bad play calling.
It doesn't mean it's bad. It means you're going to have a coach tell you on Sunday or Monday, hey, you have to get on Dylan's level.
Well, and what did he say? He said after the game, he said in real time, he goes, we were really physical. We won the turnover battle. We weren't executing at a high level. Those are his three things all the time, right? Execute, turnover battle, be the most physical football team. He's like, we got the first two, or we got 2 out of 3. We didn't execute at a high level. That's what he's talking about.
And I'm like, okay, again, I don't know if he's ever going to be USC Norm Chow. I don't either. But I can't have serious conversations with and it's fine. Like maybe not everybody wants to be some
like an X&O football junkie. Yeah.
Some sports jarhead.
Yeah. But then don't try to have those conversations.
100. That's the thing.
Like I know what. Like I'm not going to sit here.
That's the thing.
And talk about last night's volleyball match. Like I know why Creighton fell behind 0-2, and then why they were able to come back, and then why Nebraska stepped on the gas in the 5th set.
Hey, like, Shane, listen, I mean, Andy Jackson with, a middle leading the team in swings and kills. How does that happen? Let's break it down.
Yeah, like that's not me with volleyball.
Yeah, but that's what happened, right?
100%.
But we're not having that conversation.
Right. That's not my area of expertise. What I look at and I go, man, I do think the talent gap's closed. We talked about that yesterday. But there was one place where I look at and I go, ooh, Nebraska still got them there. And I'm going to probably not identify these people correctly, but it's the hitters, right? Where, like, when Harper Murray goes.
You talking about on the pens or like our outside hitters?
Yeah.
Okay.
So when like Harper Murray goes up to spike one, like that thing's coming at you like a missile.
She took some huge swings, didn't she?
She did.
Crunch time.
And it was basically undefensible for Creighton.
And you can have that conversation without saying to yourself, man, why is Krause hitting from the back when they have these 3 at the net? Right?
And when I see Creighton's players, outside hitters, take those same swings, they're not the same as when Harper Murray does it. Like that's what I notice is, oh man, it's easier for Nebraska to defend those types of situations from Creighton because physically Harper Murray and the other outside hitters for Nebraska are different. They're on a different level.
So that's kind of the dilemma, right? It's I don't want to say don't ask me because I do genuinely like talking about.
No, but you got to know where your level of interest and expertise is.
So it's like we can have these conversations, but do you really want to have them?
Yeah,
because you're not probably if this is your stance that you're taking going in, you're probably not going to like my response because I'm always going to bring it back to something that is not my opinion. Like I'm gonna say this, and this happened. This, and this is what they were trying to pull off. Then I'll say, hey, in my opinion, I think that was a good idea. That was not a good idea. I wouldn't do this. I said during the 3rd quarter, I said, man, I would love to see Nebraska use 2 backs.
Yeah. We had the conversation on Monday.
Just so they could give those backs a 2-way go as opposed to zone or that duo action where it's a little lateral. Right? You could still achieve the same thing because I felt like the 2-back look would get them back into what they wanted to do in the first half with downhill running game. That looked pretty downhill, didn't it? Yeah. Well, Colorado fixed their front and how they were going to box that thing. So then Nebraska had to adjust. Now, if you want to have those conversations, I'd be like, oh man, I kind of agree.
Yeah, like if I sit here,
but don't tell me like 2 games in
that's a bad offensive coordinator
that he's not it, because that he may not be, but it didn't have.
It's not because of what
it didn't have anything to do with what happened Saturday.
No,
like I'm not vouching for the guy being the guy, because you've never heard me talk about the play calling prowess.
Yeah,
what I talked about was that.
Yeah,
but separate than that. You can't get to 5 wins last year without him. I don't care what play calling be damned. You needed his personality to get to 5 last year as part of that offense. You just did. Because if you had a leaf blowing in the wind, you'd have been having more of these backdoor 2 out of the 6 coaches meet. They leave the other 4 out, whispering, we need to do. Like, I've seen this happen for multiple years. You needed that staff and his personality to pull off last year. So whether this guy can call plays like flipping, who's the little lefty that's supposed to save Philadelphia? Kellen Moore.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if he's going to be Kellen Moore or not. I'm saying what I know to be true is you needed resolve and conviction last year to even get through that thing.
And you had it.
And you weren't going to get what you got without his personality.
And it's entirely possible that he's, and Coach Rule used this analogy when he talked to us. It's like, maybe he's an incredible trauma surgeon, right? Maybe he's great, like in the ER and things are happening fast and he's got to do that. Maybe he wouldn't be a good neurosurgeon, right? But we don't know that yet. We know he's a good trauma surgeon.
Yeah. We'll
find out.
We'll see.
With Dylan, we'll find out if he's a good neurosurgeon. But we know he's a good trauma surgeon.
Yeah. So that's,
and those can be different skill sets, but we don't know that yet.
It's part of the reason why I think you have to kind of be able to evolve into, if we're going to have like these sweeping generalizations and judgments, like, and maybe it's not for everybody, and I'm willing to entertain, hey, you know what? Like, not everybody is that deep a thinker. Okay. But that
don't also act like you are.
Or like, I'm just going to say, okay, and move on.
Like
you know what I mean?
100%.
Like, I don't have to, like,
you don't have to entertain the conversation.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
I don't have any problem with people.
So that's okay. I'm not saying you have to be Mensa, but you can't have it both ways. If we're gonna have, and because these guys, is not the only.
No, it happens.
Clearly, this is a thing.
I see people talking to you on the internet.
Clearly, this is a thing.
Oh yeah, people have talked to me about it, and
I'm like, do you guys do you just sit around and like?
Well, it's because one person says it, and because a lot of times they don't like the results, right? I think we do that a lot is, hey, we don't like the results, so the process must have been flawed. That's not how it works, right? We don't like how many points Nebraska didn't score in the second half against Colorado, so Satterfield must be a bad offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how those things work. I mean, we don't even have to get into the hidden yardage and the lost yardage because of penalties and all that kind of stuff, right? Let's just look at the things that actually happened. Now, I mean, I saw with my own eyes Ramir Housen won for almost 70. I saw with my own eyes Ja'Cory Barney running free a bunch of times on Saturday, and I don't think that was an accident. Like, if you have to give blame for all the swing passes to Thomas Fedoni or whatever, like, you have to give credit for the stuff that worked also, even if it technically didn't count, right? Because a lot of that stuff would have happened without the penalties that were called on it. The other thing for me is, like, I keep going back to that Jalen Lloyd, that wide open pass to Jalen Lloyd. Either it was a little over, I think it was a little overthrown, and it goes off his fingertips, right? Do you know why that play worked? I know you do.
Yeah.
Because they thought he was going for a swing pass.
I know.
He goes in motion. They thought it was either going to be one of those touch passes like they did to Barney, or that it was going to be a swing pass like they'd been doing on the perimeter. And guess what? He turned it up, and the guy bit hard and was gone. Like, yes, that doesn't go in the box scores or anything because it's an incomplete pass, right? But that doesn't exist, and that's going to work countless times throughout the season because it's now on tape. So either they're going to have to cover Jalen Lloyd now, and so the deep ball won't be open, and then the swing pass will be open, or they're going to keep biting on the swing pass, and Jalen Lloyd or Ja'Cory Barner, whoever is going to be wide open down the field again. Like, that's the reason that stuff works. We can't look at plays in a vacuum.
No, that's what we like to do, though.
I know, but it's dumb. Like, you can't look at plays in a vacuum.
I didn't say that.
It's like pitching, right? Pitching is the same way. You use certain pitches to set up the next pitch.
Yeah.
Right? That's how offensive play calling works. And I'm not an expert by any means, but I know this. A lot of times you run a play that you're like, hey, I know this time it's not going to net us much, because you know it's setting something else up. And that's what you really want. Like, you can't just go out there and be like, hey, every single play that I'm calling is either going to go for a first down or a touchdown. That doesn't exist.
You talk about PTSD.
Defensive coordinators are too good.
PTSD, and I don't use this in terms of war.
Right, just sports PTSD.
Because I've heard this before. Because what people don't remember or want to admit, and if this makes you uncomfortable, I guarantee you I'm talking to you. I guarantee it. I heard this for growing up cheering for Nebraska, and I also heard it the first couple of years playing for Nebraska. Going in 1994, we won so ugly. Offense was disjointed. For Pete's sakes, they kicked it. We had to start practice over on more than one occasion. He didn't say ASS, get your behind back to the locker room. Let's start over. Okay. This isn't good enough. Defense is wearing your ass out. Okay. Go back. I heard, man, 3rd and 7. Why are you running short side option? Oh man. In 91, what kind of play? Like, all we do is run fullback up the middle. Like, am I making this up?
No.
Do you
and
know?
If you ever went back and watched 94, which I have within the last couple of years, it's not pretty.
Listen,
it's ugly.
But guess what we do now?
Oh, they were national champs.
One of the greatest play callers ever, always thinking 3 or 4 plays ahead. He's still the same guy.
Exact same guy.
He's the exact same guy.
100%.
Like so that those kinds of things bug me, because you don't only get to heap praise when it works, but then we say, oh man, that's just what fans do. Man, stop letting people off the hook like that.
Yeah.
Let's go to Lance. Lance, what's up, buddy?
Hey guys, how's it going?
I'm hanging in there.
Hey, good guys. After Rule spoke on Monday, I think, I would definitely wouldn't have doubled down and blamed that. I think he was pretty clear that some of the issues that they were having in that second half had to do with personnel. And I think that's something that, Ravi brought up Aaron Murray. I think Aaron Murray has brought that up now on 2 occasions, that where it seems like at the top of routes, this guy's just either don't have the ability or the effort's not there. So maybe we're trending that way. But, based on what Rule said, I don't think it's wise to double down on Sat's play calling. I think he did a really good job explaining it to us, and it doesn't make sense. Looking at Colorado, they had both safeties out, so it's still a little perplexing to me as to why the personnel might be having some of the issues.
That's fair.
That they are having.
See that? That's smart. That's fair. I'm with you.
If anyone wants to talk about a coach right now, the only coach that I can think of that I'm like, is special teams. Because if they don't get that fixed, let me tell you, that's going to end up biting us in a game. And it's not like they didn't know Marco Ortiz was a senior. Yeah. So some of this could have been fixed.
Another good call.
Lance, appreciate the call. We'll be back more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Shot that gets it done on the outside this time.
Decent 2 for 2. Sis into the block. Block touch by Beeson. Milanovic sends it back over. Bump set to Beeson. Straight up. Still alive. Rodriguez keeps it alive. The push. Harper. Wow.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
It was good to get off to a fast start. I love the way that we executed the opening script. We continually played physical and played hard with good effort in the first half. We didn't execute at a high level, and ended the half again for 2 weeks in a row with a 2-minute situation where we scored a touchdown. So very pleased with the start, very pleased with the 2-minute situation before the half. We have to continue to prove, as coach would say, to develop our competitive stamina and not relax when we're up 28-0.
We're back here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are live on YouTube and Facebook. Having some issues with the Twitter stream this morning. Thanks a lot.
We are?
Yeah, there was a whole.
Is this Sausage Diatribe?
Yeah.
Would she send this to us?
Yeah, our little group.
Gosh, she can text fast.
Yeah, it's. I'm just gonna blame Elon and move on.
What the world? She must have voice text this thing.
I want to go back to our conversation we were having about Satterfield because, I know I must have watched the Aaron Murray thing way differently than everybody else did. Because
you mean without preconceived notions?
Well, I just was curious because I was like, oh, he did a thing on Dylan, so I wanted to watch it. I wanted to see what he thought.
You mean you watched it with a blank slate, like just an open mind?
Yeah, it was
okay.
Well, because I don't go in there
not to confirm or deny.
Yeah, I don't go in there thinking, hey, Satterfield's a good play caller, bad play caller.
Dylan's a stud. Dylan's not a stud.
I mean, I definitely lean on
stud.
Dylan's a stud. Like, I think he's that guy. I just think he's 2 games into his career. So I understand there's going to be some bumps in the road at some point. But I go in there watching that, and I mentioned...
Is it pretty good how any bumps, as you probably go through, I'm sure, are masked by the offensive concepts?
Yeah, they're masked, and also the bumps that he's experiencing are not catastrophic, at least yet, right? Yeah. I think that's a big difference that I've noticed between Dylan and not just. I don't want to dump on Harburg. I thought he did a great job in a bad situation last year. But
that's cute.
What?
I like your soft landing
for Harburg.
Yeah,
I mean.
No, it's cute.
That was not the place he was supposed to. Like, that was not the role he was supposed to play last year.
I'm with you.
But like, you go back to even Adrian or Taylor or whoever, or Tommy Armstrong even. Like, those guys, when they had, certainly Tanner Lee in his 1 year, when they had problems, they ended up, like, when they had bumps in the road, they were catastrophic most of the time or often. Whereas so far, at least, and small sample size, I'm watching this tape that Aaron Murray's going through. And he's talking about, hey, this guy over the middle is actually going to break open here. And Dylan chooses to be like, hey, there's a safe crosser here. He takes that one. That's a mistake. Like, you should take the shot. The guy was open. That's a read you need to make. That's a freshman mistake. Be like, hey, in 2 games, 6 games, 8 games, however long from now, he'll probably make the right throw there. This guy breaks open. He knows it's a 15-yard gain instead of a 5-yard gain. You move the sticks, right? But what I took away from that wasn't, oh, Dylan's a freshman quarterback or he's a check down master or whatever. I get that. At some point, if he doesn't evolve to make those throws, I may think differently. What I thought was, oh, hey, what a nice offensive concept that not only do you have a guy break open for 15 yards in the middle of the field, where we thought Colorado was weak, by the way, was the middle of the field, right? And you had guys break open, and this is on multiple plays, not just 1 or 2, because I'll give Aaron Murray credit. He did most of Dylan's passing attempts. It was not just, hey, this guy breaks open for the gain that you wanted, but there were multiple safety valves set up so that if Dylan didn't like the look over the middle, he had places to go with the ball. And Dylan chose to go those places instead of taking some of the shots that he probably should have. But I looked at that and I go, oh, so guys are breaking open. Dylan just needs to learn which throws to make, or needs to have a better understanding of, hey, this is what it looks like when that guy's going to break open in this spot.
And hear my heart, right? I'm not telling you who to like and who not to like. What I'm telling you is if you're going to have these conversations, just know what you're talking about. That's all.
100%.
Right? Like,
and
again,
if you don't know what you're talking about, acknowledge that. Be like, hey, I don't like the results of how this looked.
Like, you can't, I mean, you're talking about people like such and such needs to go where he's this. I clearly remember sitting in winter meetings. Ask anybody that was in town that wasn't drunk on Saturday.
That's going to be a short list.
Of our old guys in 94.
Yeah.
We were getting ready to go into 95. Okay. We're in winter meeting. We're getting ready to start winter conditioning. All the guys come in. We just come back from break. I mean, it's mob deep in there, right? And Coach Osborne is imploring us to work our rear ends off. He's like, hey, we got to come back bigger, stronger, faster, better than ever. We've got to be better than we were a year ago. He walked us through going from the hunter to the hunted. And we have to, the famous line that I love to say that I got from T.O. Actually, I got it from Coach Solich, but they both said it. You have to train in such a way where time doesn't matter. Okay. So
You can get into deep water and still be good
I'm
to
like,
go.
we're like, shoot, man, it's like January 11th, man. Why are we like, this dude's already on the gas? And he closed the show by saying this. He said, you guys, you have to trust me on this. Hold one another accountable. Let's go to work. Because remember, I'm the guy that a year ago couldn't win on grass. People will forget about you if you don't stay ahead of the curve. Remember, I'm the guy that a year ago couldn't win on grass. Remember, I'm the guy that a year ago couldn't win on grass. Right then and there, it put everything in a perspective. Like, you got to do what you have to do. You cannot control what other people think, because he didn't become an offensive genius until 1994, unless he forgot how to coach offense between 1983 and the scoring explosion in 1994. That's why you're hearing what you're hearing. I couldn't care less if you really like Sat or not, because that's not my jam.
It's not here nor there.
Just stop being so reactionary, especially if you don't know, like, we don't know enough.
And I don't know enough about. I mean, I watched him at South Carolina prior to last year. I did my homework on him there, and there was stuff that I really liked, and there was stuff that I was like, yeah, I don't know if that's a concept or a player issue or an execution issue.
So why didn't I mind Joel? Why didn't I mind what Shafe said?
Because he said it was about how he felt.
I just want blood.
Yeah, which I totally get.
And I'm like, you know what?
There needs to be a self-awareness there about your, like, not everybody fan needs to be an X's and O's guy.
Yeah,
Doesn't have to be.
Yeah, and he's just honest, like.
And I get it. Like,
I get that.
In the moment, I was in the same place as Joel.
Me too.
I was like, foot on their throat.
Me too.
Let's go.
Do you know who else is like that?
Probably Rule,
the head coach.
Yeah,
that said that they should have hung 40 or 50 on him.
Yeah, he goes, I thought the score was going to be 40-10.
I didn't even say that, but remember the part that I said. He said they're going to get their head beat in.
Yeah,
in code.
Yeah,
and I was like, he did not just say that.
Yeah,
he did.
And then he said it out loud after.
And
he goes, I thought we were going to win 40-10.
And as he walked away, I said, what? And he said, hey, man, we're a good team.
Yeah.
So now we're going to prove it. I was like, I couldn't get back to the service elevator fast enough. I mean, it was a dead doggone. It was darn near a sprint. I said, oh, I'm out. I gotta go settle down. I needed to take a Quaalude or something. Wait, do those slow you down? I don't smoke weed, so I can't do that.
Slow you down.
I needed a Quaalude.
Yeah.
I literally was just gonna jump into the service elevator.
Yeah.
Like before the doors even open. Just thunk. You know what I mean?
Just to kind of prove your point.
And you think crybaby? I'm sorry. I don't want to make national talk shows, even though we should be a national talk show. How many times Raiola get hit? How many times they touch him? You think he doesn't want some sort of what? Is that not good?
No, it's pretty fun. It's pretty good. It's pretty on the spot.
Thank you.
I just love how.
Do you think he doesn't want? He doesn't want some of those concepts?
100%.
Right.
But we think, oh, he's got an NFL guy. He's got Pat Shermer. It's like, oh, he must be a genius.
And here's the thing about Sherm, y'all. Okay, Prime. Like, really? You know, here's the thing about Sherm.
Yeah.
Sherm didn't protect his quarterback.
Yeah.
He's going to be a high draft pick. Do you know what our offense does? They protect their quarterback. Do you know what he's going to be? A high draft pick. So you don't get that life without the concepts in it.
And the concepts were still good. Nebraska didn't execute them.
You better stop.
Nebraska didn't execute.
I kind of don't like Dion anymore, but I kind of still do.
Well, hey, welcome to the team. Don't worry, I've got a whole thing on Dion next in a second here.
Zip it.
Just to prove your point, against a winless Iowa State team in '94, it was 28-12.
Mm-hmm.
Against a 6-6
I scored in that game.
Oklahoma team, 13-3.
Mm-hmm.
Against an okay but not great Kansas State team, 17-6.
Mm-hmm.
Against a bad Wyoming.
Although Kansas State, we were pretty shorthanded.
Well, that was the Monte Cristo, or not Monte Cristo, Matt Turman.
Yeah.
Wyoming,
down at the half.
Scored 42, but gave up 32.
Yeah, and had to recover one inside the 20 to score to make that work worse
Like,
than it was.
Wasn't all rainbows and butterflies in 94.
No, I know. Believe me, you ain't got to tell your
No,
boys.
I'm just.
I lived it. I heard it.
I'm verifying. Brett, hang on the line here. We'll get to you when we come back. Then I'll also tell you why I don't like Dion today. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Yeah, I think I've had to work at it. Obviously, I feel like I've had a head start with just my dad and being around that that building at such a young age, and through the people that have taught me how to play football. But no, I mean, I've learned so much since I've been here from Coach Thomas, Coach Sack, Coach Rule, my uncle, our whole coaching staff has just taught me so much, and I'm very grateful for that. And I think it helps. Like defensive coaches are trying to help, me and our quarterbacks and our process. So I think when you have a culture like that of people trying to help each other on different sides of the ball,
everyone just levels up at one time and it just takes off.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Facebook and YouTube this morning. I want to set the lineup real quick since we are almost an hour in. I haven't done that yet. Brian Christopherson.
I blame Jimmy.
I do blame Jimmy.
You just totally made that. That's not even remotely close to his name either.
Oh, no, I just picked a name.
Jimmy?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I figured it wasn't his name because, I mean, what are the chances? So I was like, I'll just pick a name.
Yeah.
I have never heard you talk about someone named Jimmy in terms of like somebody that you interact with.
Yes.
So I wasn't trying to like pick a name that I know you knew.
Oh.
That's what I was trying to do, you know.
I do know some dummies named Jimmy, though.
You doing all right over there?
Who?
You with your chair situation.
Oh, shoot.
You look like a little kid that can't sit still in class.
I got issues, man.
It's an unbelievable
Sorry,
surprise.
I'm just going to keep rolling. You do you.
Don't mind me. I don't have any idea why I'm sitting like this.
Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7 at 8. Andy Kendeigh from KETV at 8:30. Got Mitch Sherman from The Athletic at 9. And Russell Baxter covering the NFL for Fansided at 9:45. Let's get to Brett real quick before I tell you why Dion sucks today.
The Hitman?
Hart?
Brett,
what's going on, man?
Hey, good morning, fellas. Hey, real quick. Hey, DB.
What up?
That Bulldog hat I sent you a couple years ago, I have a West Side one that's shipping to the school for you in like 2 weeks.
Oh, let's go. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, hey, I just wanted to talk about, because you guys have been talking about culture and quarterbacks and the ripple effect. I think the one thing that's not talked about enough is the impact of success. You know, doing what you say you're going to do is had on like local high schools and youth football. Just an example, like my son, he said, hey, this week, Dylan Rillo knows all 129 plays. We've had like 7 or 8 kids at our house watching film, breaking down to figure out like, okay, what do we need to do? How can we be better? He's out there coaching, telling kids like, I got to know what my linemen do. If I run the read, our tackle takes a wrong step and cuts out. Linebacker is going to crash. I should keep and get to the edge because it's free. I think those little things, the impact broader than just the Nebraska football program, with what Matt Rule's done, should be talked about more because there's a huge ripple effect, and it's only going to make, one, kids in Nebraska better, but coaches that have kids that play at a high level, they're going to gravitate to it because of the high level Nebraska's playing at. Not only that, the only downside with what they're doing is I got to take 52 kids to Pizza Ranch after a win because my son shot his mouth off that, hey, Dylan Rillo takes his players out to dinner after they win, so why don't I? So
52 at Pizza Ranch. Dang, you want to adopt?
Hey, if Micah wants to, you know, come to North Platte because we beat West Side, that's totally cool. I'd love to have it.
Wow.
So, no big deal.
Shots fired. Shots fired. It's going to be like that, huh?
All right.
I think that's a good thing that they do, and I think that's something we don't talk about enough.
I appreciate that, Brett. That's Brett with 2 T's. Thank you.
Brett, appreciate the call there. Want to read
What are you looking at?
message that we got from our guy, Adam McClintock, the college football professor, just to give some context.
Stop looking at me.
I mean, it's hard not to.
Whatever.
Adam says, not going to lie, the numbers don't like Sat. He doesn't grade highly as an OC for his career, but I haven't had a problem with his play calling this year. Two truths can coexist.
Yeah, I completely understand. I said
100%.
that. I said that. Like, I get it. If it's based on history.
Here's the other thing I want to give context to.
Although I do think I agree with my man, Degenerate Aaron.
What's that?
He said anybody that claims that they went back and watched USC's or South Carolina's offense is lying, even though you did.
I really did.
But, like, I mean, people don't know.
No, I mean, I did because I was curious more than anything. I don't want to act like I was being some, like, great professional. I just wanted to know.
I mean, do you want
my own purposes?
Would you want to be Sean Lewis?
No.
Does anybody know what Sean Lewis is doing? Shane, what is Sean Lewis doing?
No, I don't want to be.
If it was me trying to figure it out, probably I'd be like, oh, geez.
You think he regrets signing up to hang out with Coach Prime?
Yeah, going from a head coach in the MAC to a 1-year OC at Colorado, sure. They played like they were in the MAC. Right?
Oh, he got the San Diego State job.
There you go.
Yeah.
You want to be Sean Lewis?
I'd rather be Sean Lewis than
Do you know why Sean?
Pat Shermer right now.
But Sherm? I almost said nothing.
Not a darn thing.
It's Dern.
Dern. Sorry, I apologize. Here, so I want to put some context with the Marcus Satterfield stuff because we respect Adam a ton. He does great stuff and is always super generous with his time with us.
Are at like AMAC?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you're all over the place.
I know. So here's the thing that I wanted to get back to with Satterfield.
Adam has it
and the context of his numbers.
He has
right?
swagger.
He is smart.
Is super smart. I want to use Coach Rule as an example here real quick.
Of course you do.
If you look at Coach Rule's overall record as a head coach, not super impressive, right?
Nope.
Why is that?
A couple first years, couple rebuilds, couple tough jobs.
Yeah, took some really tough jobs.
Yeah.
And it takes a minute.
Yeah.
Right? I am curious because I don't have the year-by-year numbers for
Sat was with him a lot.
No, he was. I know. I'm looking at that. But, I mean, I don't have his year-by-year numbers.
Gotcha.
But here's what I do know, okay?
I mean, they weren't an offensive juggernaut at Temple or anything.
Right. And first couple of years, they were rough at Temple.
No, I know.
I'm just trying to give context. Their first couple of years were a little rough at Temple. I understand that.
Okay.
First couple of years, a little rough at Baylor.
Can you see me?
I can. I don't know if anybody else can. You look like you're hiding. South Carolina. Do you remember what happened the first year at South Carolina? That he was at South Carolina? That's the year they had the grad assistant having to play quarterback because they were out of guys.
Yeah, I remember.
And then Spencer Rattler, who is anybody enamored with Spencer Rattler anymore?
No.
Anybody in the world?
I mean, the NFL fell for what other people fall for.
In like the 6th round.
Tremendous arm talent.
Right. But that's a flyer, right? 5th or 6th round.
Shoot, I wish I could have got drafted in the 5th or 6th round.
No, I get that.
Haterade, dude.
But considering who we thought Spencer Rattler was, and where he ended up, I mean, 2 years before that, we thought he was a first rounder, maybe a number 1 overall pick.
Sure.
So from where the talent would have indicated he was to who he actually was, it's not like Spencer Rattler was Caleb Williams, right? That's a real thing.
Okay.
So I think there is some context that's important to Marcus Satterfield's numbers. I'm not saying he's Lane Kiffin, right? I'm not.
Why do we keep using the SC guys?
Because I love Lane Kiffin.
So wait, so is it Hawaii Norm Chow or SC Norm Chow?
I think you're better off with SC Norm Chow.
Okay, because we do get the pick.
Hawaii.
All right, what do we got?
Because he went OC at Hawaii first, right?
Yeah, but then came back.
Yeah.
I mean, doesn't everybody go back to Hawaii?
I don't know why you wouldn't. Head coach Norm Chow.
You ever try to buy groceries in Hawaii?
I've never been to Hawaii. It just seems nice.
Oh, it's because you enjoy your teeth. Don't be eating fresh pineapple.
I do like teeth.
Breaks down bromelain. It eats away at your enamel.
We can leave head coach Norm Chow over here because that didn't go great. Okay. But offensive coordinator Norm Chow, I'll take basically any version of offensive coordinator Norm Chow. Whichever one you want to pick.
Well, he's had some very poor stunts.
Sure. Yeah. Well, most offensive coordinators have.
Oh.
And I'm not saying Marcus Satterfield is Lane Kiffin or Mike Leach or whoever you want to pick that's an offensive genius. But I also think that's important to put context to what his career has been and where he's been in either rebuilds or really tough situations or bad quarterback situations where you're playing a GA at South Carolina for a good chunk of that first year. Like, that matters too. We saw it again last year with Nebraska. Like, yeah, those offensive numbers are going to look terrible for Marcus Satterfield. You know what he was able to do? He was able to Band-Aid over bullet holes to get them to 5 wins with a guy that they didn't think was going to play quarterback in Heinrich Haarberg. Like, that's a real thing that happened too. The numbers are real, 100%. But just like Adam said, 2 things can coexist at the same time. Both of those things can be true. And like I said, maybe he is best served as a trauma surgeon. Hey, everything's falling apart. Sat, what do we do?
Well, I don't even want you to ask me stuff like that.
But I also don't know that he's ever really been in a situation where he had a chance to function at a super high level.
I don't know why you'd want to just – because you come across as though you're defending a guy. Why do you want to be rational?
Well, I don't think I'm defending him. I'm saying I don't know what he looks like when he defends or when he has an opportunity to operate at a high level.
I was totally being facetious.
I know. I understand. It's okay.
Yeah. Do you want to do you want to know why Colorado can't run the ball?
Why is that?
I'm just saying, like, I'm sure Colorado doesn't like their offensive coordinator right now either.
Yeah, but they're a juggernaut, remember? Offensive juggernaut.
But wait a minute. Does Shermer have good success as an OC?
I'd have to look. I assume so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
With his track record, I assume
It's just weird how that works, right?
Yeah.
It's seldom that linear.
Yeah, I think people don't realize offensive coordinators go up and down a lot. I mean, it just is what it is. Like, it's not – that's the job, though. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, especially in college where you've got a ton of turnover from year to year, and especially if you're starting in rebuild situations like Sack consistently has with Coach Rule.
Yeah.
That's what the job is.
Travis is right, though, at Denver. Who was his quarterback in Denver, though, Trav?
With Shermer?
Yeah.
I don't remember what year he was there.
I'm waiting for Travis to answer because he's right.
That wasn't was that the Tebow year? I don't remember what year Shermer was in Denver.
I'm asking Travis, not Ravi.
Oh, sorry. Well, coming up, we'll talk to our guy, Brian Christopherson. We can ask him whatever we want.
Well, I want to ask him about Travis Hunter.
I do want to ask about Travis Hunter.
I like Travis Hunter.
He might be the one Colorado Buffalo I like. He might be the only one. More coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, you got guys walking into Ace Hardware without their shirts on.
Brian Christopherson.
We got a pretty good sewing circle in this state.
Brian Christopherson.
To me, it's like crunch time, baby.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
They were penalties. It was, we have to coach the technique better and we have to demand the technique better as coaches. That can't happen. I mean, that was 176 yards, I think, of offense and a touchdown that were called back. So that was critical and starts with us as coaches.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar exterior stage. We're joined now by Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, what's going on, man?
Not much. I'll try to keep it more PG this week, guys.
Oh, BC, that was fantastic. That was like one of the funnier 78 seconds ever last week. Was your wife at any point, was she like, and I married this guy?
She wonders why she did that a lot, I'm sure, but actually she found it quite hilarious and found the clip, and I seemed to pass it on to everybody we knew and thought it was quite enjoyable. So
well, you couldn't even script the awkward silence any better after the comment. I was like, well, maybe he's not joking. Nah, I'm just kidding. Not really, though.
It's all right. I'll take it on that one. I'll take it on the chin there. All right.
Okay,
I ran over by a sausage.
I'm gonna grow up here. BC, so what is it now? You've now won 16 out of your last 22. You're hanging on by a thread. How many are you just champing at the bit to get your guys back healthy, or can you hang on?
Oh, you're talking about my twins.
Yes,
he's always talking about.
I'm always talking about your twins.
Yeah, I'm thankful that football season has sort of rescued me from paying close attention, but they've frustrated the heck out of me. They are up 3 on the Tigers right now, and
who all of a sudden are playing good baseball.
I feel a little vindicated. No, you guys will remember this. This is one of these things like only a person who said it remembers that they did. But on your show, I said the Tigers are like kind of a dangerous team this year, and it looks like really foolish talk, and now they're kind of coming around to make it seem like it's an okay take. But I think the Twins are barely going to hang on, but it's going to get within like a game or so. They still have to go to Boston and Cleveland next week, and I could see with that bunch they have them going like 1-6 or something, and there you go, they're out of it. So
well, don't worry, Boston's probably going to help you out a little bit, so you're probably okay.
Well, they might. I don't know though. This is like a AAA Twins team right now, so I'm not cashing any
offensively for sure.
Yeah, it's terrible, but thankfully, as I say, I've got Sam Darnold, chasing the MVP award, and so there's things like that to keep my attention.
Dude, Sam Darnold is the GOAT. Like, what are you talking about?
You're welcome for Kyle Shanahan fixing him and then sending him to you. You're welcome.
Well, KOC, Kevin O'Connell. I think he's a really good offensive coach. This is his chance to really prove it. He can take Sammy to the next level.
Well, it's funny. We talk about quarterback relationships with their OC, Brian Christopherson. How willing are you to separate, tie together, talk about it as you see it? Nebraska's offensive coordinator and young Dylan Raiola. Are they uniquely connected? Not at all. Do you watch them separately?
I mean, I think, yeah, they're connected somewhat. I think both Glenn Thomas and Marcus Satterfield have obviously done, in my opinion, a really good job with a freshman quarterback who's really talented of giving him a process where he can learn as much material as he had. And then you got to give, I think, most of the credit to a young guy like that who just puts in the work. And when he's being singled out, by the head coach and the OC as just knowing all 120 plays or how many are ever in there, and some other guys even have to catch up to him that are older, that says a lot, obviously, about his maturity. You always hear that he's beyond his years and everything. But, I thought it was an interesting story when they were talking about like the 2-minute drill against Colorado, and they weren't sure exactly what CU was going to run there. And you have a freshman quarterback giving his 2 cents about what about this on a particular play. I mean, that's pretty next level for a second start in that type of environment. So sometimes you got to stop, take a step back, and just appreciate, like, that's pretty good stuff. And I know the offense was clunky in the second half and left a lot of things out there. And I think they're looking at it from the vantage point of they were their own worst enemy on a bunch of that stuff. And if, Ramir's touchdown isn't called back and Barney's, elusive 50-yard play isn't stands, maybe you have a nice little second half, and it's kind of the exclamation point on the day. But it was kind of the perfect game for this coaching staff, I thought. You got to handle a win that was handled with ease, and yet there was so much where you can get guys' attention the next day and say, this can be a lot better and has to be a lot better, and I think that's how they're taking it.
BC, is it an oversimplification to say that if Nebraska had, let's say, 2 fewer penalties in the correct situations, that we're not even having anything remotely close to this conversation about the offense?
It was still clunky, but you're absolutely right. The whole narrative would be different. I really believe it. Like, just say Ramir's touchdown alone had stood.
Yeah.
I think that the fan base and that crowd who's just like, it was such a fire pit in the first half. They just wanted like that exclamation point in the second half that sort of, here's the capper on the sentence, right? And I think that play is the only thing people kind of wish would have stood or materialized in that game. And had it happen, I really do think people would have kind of shifted some of the conversations, and they probably would have bet over 400 yards offense, and it's a 35-10 game or whatever, and everybody feels great about it. But as I said, sometimes you get sort of a disjointed half like that and you win the game. It's pretty good when they walk in Sunday, Monday, and you've got that in front of their eyeballs, and nobody is mistaken that there's stuff that can be cleaned up. And the perimeter blocking thing, which did come up a decent amount yesterday, is a real deal that they've got to get corrected and improved on. It just hasn't been good enough in my eyes, and certainly not theirs.
So it's interesting, BC, because what I hear you saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if Nebraska didn't have 3 penalties for 28 yards, we would be okay with 9 minutes and 30 seconds of time of possession in the third quarter and running 19 plays?
Yeah, I mean, it was a kind of a mishmash second half. I agree. Like, I felt at times like it was a little trying. And I will say this, even if you go back to the UTEP game, if we're going to look at some items where you're like, okay, I hope this irons out a little bit better. I thought there were some situations even in the first week where Nebraska didn't do great on first down. And
even the second quarter, the second half of the second quarter wasn't good.
Yeah. So there are things, like, I have no problem saying that they got to get some things fixed, because they were 11 of 17 the first week, I think, on third downs. But I remember in the first half, there were some like 1st and 10s that went for nothing, or, screens that got blew up because the perimeter blocking wasn't great. And so there was stuff where you're kind of like, I don't love how that could translate later. So I think that's all the stuff that you really bring to everyone's attention and make it clear, like, this isn't going to always get it done against every team on this schedule. That said, to what you were asking, yeah, I do think with a couple more plays thrown in, it would have been a deal where everybody looks at it through a little bit of a different lens of how the game went offensively.
Yeah, because you would have been on pace. It doesn't work this way, but we seem to think it does when it's to the negative. You would have been on pace for 38 minutes time of possession and 76 plays.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the dirty little secret we don't want to say out loud, because it didn't look the way that we wanted it to.
And there is that give and take. I mean, there's probably some legit penalties in there, and then there's a few where maybe they weren't, so you have to accept that maybe there was a play or two where it was the right call, and you got to do something better and you improve on it. And maybe on a few cases, they're telling their guys, do it the same way next week, and hopefully you have a better officiating crew. I don't know. But all said, my biggest takeaway, And it's the thing that it felt old school to me with the 94 bunch down on the sidelines was
bunch of drunks.
Yeah, that was a beatdown. I mean, that was a physical beatdown where one team is going to feel it into the middle of the week. And that's what Nebraska football hasn't always had recently, is that presence where you make a quarterback, especially with on the offensive side of the ball, them kind of wish they were somewhere else after a quarter or two. And that felt pretty awesome to watch, because I do this a lot, Damon. Whenever the teams from the 90s are honored, I tend to always write these things about the offensive line and how the current offensive line needs to live up to, have this moment in front of these legacy guys that pays them honor. And sometimes I feel like I skip past too much those black shirts guys from the past who beat up Cordell Stewart and Chad May and Frank Costa and all those guys, and how just, great they were about just taking the will of the other side. And I really appreciated how those guys were feeling on Saturday night as they watched that, or had to be feeling, seeing a performance like that where it's just complete dominance. And it's like, yeah, this is going to be a game that knocks the cool out of your walk. And I think they did that with Colorado. So that's impressive.
Yeah. How do you like not walking cool now? BC, do you remember, Ravi, do you remember it kind of flew under the radar, but we had a sit down in the summer a couple years ago, and Coach Rule very candidly said, everybody wants to talk about offense and, the glory days this and the glory days that. He said, do you know what we're not talking about enough? If Nebraska ever wants to play national championship caliber football again, it starts with the black shirts. Like he said, and now it's almost like they're speaking it into existence, because for all the run and, with phrase and I'm not sure whatever the other iconic offensive plays are, the one national brand that goes border to border is the black shirts. Why wouldn't we think that way?
Yeah. That's a good point. And he said it after the game. You get into these weeks where everybody wants to make it about this particular player or that player. And as he said, I kept telling everyone they're forgetting about this defense and the black shirts. And that's what's basically going to be the story. And that proved to be right. And you're right. It is probably one of the biggest branding items associated with Husker football. And it's funny, as I've covered this team, there have been years where it's been so mediocre or bad on that side of the ball. Not very recently, but some years past where we wouldn't even use the term in stories. We almost didn't even acknowledge them as that, during the season. When I was a kid, that was what they were every week. The black shirts on defense whenever they're on the field. And so I think it is a very meaningful thing when you have a group of guys who are bringing that tag back with pride in a way that everybody just, yes, the black shirts are on the field, and that's who they are. And there's just so much excitement to see what they're going to do next. On Saturday, even as dangerous as some of the weapons Colorado has are, I was eager every time that matchup popped up on the field. It was just what's going to happen next, and you just sensed Nebraska was going to do something really good. And so it's a nice spot to be in. And the thing that I think the fans love is they sense it's a group that just doesn't rest on their laurels. And you saw Tony White yesterday said it's Tuesday. We're the worst defense in the country right now. And I think he's very good about bringing his guys back down to earth in a hurry.
There's two good reasons, right, why Nebraska will stay on the gas against Northern Iowa. Matt Rule, right? Those are the two reasons.
Matt and Rule.
Yeah. He was so pissed, and it was the stuff that he says, it may make us cringe, but he said those exact things to the staff on Sunday and Monday, right?
Yeah,
they know that they kind of got put on notice without being put on notice. When you're hyper competitive like that and you're honest, as long as it's not the first time those guys are hearing it, they understand where he's at.
Oh, he's honest. We've never had I've never been sitting in a press room where the head coach on Monday says, 40 to 10 or whatever he said. 40 to 10 is what that score should have been. Basically, that's what I thought going in the score is going to be. And that's no disrespect, but that's what we thought. I mean, he was saying out loud stuff you just don't hear from head coaches all the time. He'll say what he thinks, and
not the kegs and eggs.
No,
that was classic.
That was good too.
Play
But
at 9 a.m. Let's go.
As you listen to,
let's go.
Yeah, that was a great quote. As you listen to Rule and the other guys talk, though, it brought home Mekhi Bear last week when he said what he said. He just said the quiet part out loud that everybody else was thinking, So it was kind of interesting, and all the comments since the game kind of confirmed that. But yeah. It sounds like they had a very honest film session from the game Saturday that lasted a while with the team, with Rule. And, it wasn't just treated like they necessarily dominated in every facet. There were those things pointed out where this needs to go up a few notches if we're going to be that kind of team. And that's what you got to be. I mean, you got to be like that. Right now he says they're a winning football team, but you're trying to get to be a championship type football team. And these are the corrections we're talking about. They got to get in order.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, isn't kind of the ironic thing about the conversation about the offense over the last 2 days that if you were to ask most Nebraska fans in a vacuum if they'd rather have this beautiful high-scoring football team or if they'd like to go just physically dominate their opponents, they would choose physically dominating their opponents. And then that's what we saw on Saturday, and still no one's happy about it.
Yeah, I think they would choose that if they were given the poll. But, it's an interesting question because this is a fan base that of a certain age, they were brought up on big-time scores running across the screen involving Nebraska, like your 56-10 type scores. Like, it is a fan base that has appreciated a little bit of style with their wins and scoring a lot of points. And I always used to think this growing up, like Michigan and some Big Ten schools, old Big Ten schools, would play some game against like Central Michigan in September or something, and they'd win like 27-10, on like ESPN at 11 a.m. on, it is kind of a just ugly plotting game against a team that's not even from a power conference. And it would always be treated like, oh, nice win, and I always thought like Nebraska sort of had this standard. It was because they established all these dominating scores over the years where there was this expectation like they had to not just win, but it had to really be with pizzazz and sort of that. And I do think that it's still, even after some of the struggles, sometimes attached to the back of people's minds sometimes and how they analyze these games. And I think we got to get away from that a bit. And you sometimes got to, after a game, look at it and say, if I had been told going in Nebraska was going to be up 28 points at halftime, or they were going to win by 18, and it was just going to be pretty easy by the third, fourth quarter, I would have taken that in a second. Every fan would have, And so I think you got to sometimes say, what would have I thought on Friday if I'd been told this would have happened? You would have been pretty happy. And that's a way I think maybe to go about it.
Well, BC, what's funny is I predicted the margin of victory exactly. I said it was going to be 38-20, and it ends up being 28-10, right? So 18 points. And every time I told somebody that, they're like, oh, so you think we're going to kick their ass? Every single time. They're like, oh, we're going to beat their heads in. I was like, yep.
That's a good point.
That's what I believe. And I was like, okay, if you believed on Thursday, Friday, when I said we're going to win by 18,
it just didn't look right.
That we're going to beat, that means we beat their head in. And then they go and win by 18 while beating their head in. And now we're unhappy about it. Like, I'm having a hard time with the incongruous. And I know what it looked like in the second half. I do.
But do you guys think, BC, because I like, that's a good point. Unfortunately, it's a good point.
I know you hate it when I do that.
But BC, like Colorado I worried at one point, and I know this is like, oh, it's Colorado, you hate them. And I do.
We don't hate the kids.
Right. Like, I worried about who was going to take the field against Colorado State in a week. They were getting whipped. Like with everything hurt. And I said to Sharpie at one point in the third quarter, I go, At what point does the dad thing kick in where you're just watching your sons just get worn the heck out, right? Like,
yeah.
That has to wear on you at some point.
Because even Colorado was bringing the drama. I mean, they hit too.
They
like
did.
Defensively, they brought the lumber. That was a beautifully played, ugly, physical game. And the analogy I gave to Ravi on Monday was we jumped out on Colorado 17-0 in 94 on a 11 o'clock sunny morning kick. And you know what the final score was? 24-7.
24-7.
Do you know what we weren't? Pissed.
Yeah.
Right? That was a pretty ugly second half we played.
Because again, if you had told people on Friday
that we would win
beat the number 3 team in the country 20 by 17 points, everybody would be like, "Thank God, let's go."
Yeah, I mean, it's like
that's absolutely true, guys. I mean, if it Ravi did bring up a good point, because if you had said that it was going to be a 17 to 21 point game a day beforehand, that's one of those where you get some blowback to be like, oh man, a little bit homerific there, with that pick. And that's exactly how it turned out. And my biggest takeaway to your point, Damon, is, Nebraska went down the alleyway and they beat them up. I mean, that was what happened. And that's the biggest thing. Like, whether it was going to end up 35-10 or 28-10 or whatever, Colorado knew by the end of the game that they had lost that fight and they had lost it royally. And that's what Husker football has to get back, that main theme. And all the other, the score will take care of itself in almost every week if you do that. And so, I mean, that's how I felt after that game. I know there's a lot of CU people on social media like to chirp, like going in about this and that with their team, but even they knew. I mean, they got their butts kicked, in where it mattered in that game. And that was old school Nebraska, and how I think Colorado, and you don't wish injuries on anybody, but I do think they're feeling it today still. And that's sort of like the best compliment you can give to a football team when you do that to another team.
BC, I'm glad you brought up the results the scores taking care of themselves, because as you were talking about, Nebraska fans being used to seeing big numbers coming across the score line there, the thing that I thought was, okay, those numbers were a result of physically dominating teams, they were the kind of the symptom. The cause was the physical domination. We kind of have to remember, like, we're in like game 2 of Nebraska
that's the thing.
What does that look like by game 12 or by next year, game, 20 or 24? Like, so that's kind of where my mind went. It's like, hey, we're on the front end of this thing and we're comparing it to the back end of something else.
Damn,
yeah, that's true.
This might be your best segment, Ravi.
He is having a good segment. It's tough to say. But it's that process that the rule always talks about. And you're right. We're just in the early chapters of this. And Saturday was a really good step. And then you get a recruit, Christian Jones, who commits, a couple days later. And it's a good time for Husker football. And I think there's a lot of kids who are on the sideline too. Big time recruits who are watching that game, and they hear a lot of this stuff about Colorado, all the off season and stuff. That's one of those games where, as I said, you beat them up in front of those prospects. Not only did you beat them up in a sort of fashion where the memes and the stuff still sticks. There's all those pictures are still out there of Jamari Butler, MJ Sherman hovering over Shedeur Sanders after a sack or whatever. It was a win that was great for Nebraska to just get to 2-0, but I think it has some carrying power with some of those guys too, like some of the images that you established in a game like that. So it was a great weekend for Husker football, and now you just got to keep your foot on the pedal.
BC, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, guys.
We've got Andy Kendeigh, KETV, coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Shot that gets it done on the outside this time.
Decent 2 for 2. Sis into the block. Block touch by Beeson. Milanovic sends it back over. Bump set to Beeson. Great up. Still alive. Rodriguez keeps it alive. The push. Harper.
Halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We are joined now by our friend Andy Kendeigh from KETV. What's going on, Andy?
Morning, boys. How's it going?
Good. You know what I realize, Andy? You know how I know I've known you too long? I don't even have to
How is
finish I don't even have to finish my sentences. I can talk to you in passing and vice versa, and we'll laugh and giggle like little kids because you know and we know exactly what each other's saying. It's kind of gross.
Well, it is. I will tell you, when you walk into the lunchroom before football games, DB, it is always a good, like, we can recap Friday night in about 7 words and about 100 laughs. We know what's going on. It's just funny. I know what you're thinking, and it's great.
I do admire you for being able to sit there in the same seat every week and do that. Bless your heart, because I don't know, man. Like, I'm not built for that. It's like I just try to be a moving target.
Well, I'll tell you, last week was unique because it was tough to get in that seat last week. That traffic was about as bad and as thick as I've ever seen getting down to Lincoln. It took us almost an hour to get from the interstate down to our parking spot. It was a mess last week, and we didn't leave any later than normal, and it was just crazy. People were ready and ripe. They were ready.
So Benny Mac is notorious. McLaughlin is notorious for being early, right? But you know me, I hate traffic. I'm impatient. I'm sitting in that studio at 11:50. I'm like, I don't care. I'm gonna wait. It's a good TV setup. I'm gonna sit here and mind my own business. Right? It's a sound engineer, my man Russ. Okay, so it's 1:45. We're on air at 2:30, and our engineer goes, "Has anybody heard from Ben McLaughlin? Has anybody heard from Ben?" Because it's like danger time, right? Even though we still have 45 minutes. My man walks in about 2, doesn't even say hello. It's about 16 expletives, and that it took him 58 minutes from lot 9, AK, to get to the studio. He was livid. He said he got on the inside lane on the exit 3 miles early just to make sure he could get over.
Isn't it amazing? The only time that traffic was that bad, rival, was remember that Texas game in 2010 that read out around the world?
Yeah, and
tell you,
it was a 6:30 game. Like, we had all day to stagger the traffic flow.
No question, but it seemed like everybody left at the same time last week. And I'm guessing you don't need a ticket to drive down to Lincoln to have a pregame party, if you know what I mean. There was a lot of unticketed partiers going on, I think. So, and rightfully so. It was a perfect day. And if you're going to go out and spend an afternoon with friends and family and whatever, and new friends, I should say, Saturday was a pretty good day to do it. And, for one of the rare Saturdays in recent years, it actually turned out the way that everybody was hoping. That was the cool part about it, and people were still going wee hours into the night. So
no question.
On the way home was thick. Yeah.
There will be so many birthdays in 9.5 months. It's not even funny.
It's funny you should say that, DB. We mentioned that on the way home. We said, "Oh boy, we were walking to our car. And it's like, it's not too late because I actually edited in the car on the way back. So it's like it's probably midnight, 11:30, midnight, and there were 2 separate couples stumbling over themselves.
It was
trying to get back to Luxor.
It was crazy. I had to double back to pick up some. My buddy brought some meat up from Kansas City, and I forgot to grab it out of the cooler. So after we dropped my back off at Westland, we doubled back downtown. And I'm just telling you, I drove through one spot where there were probably 85 police cars along Holdridge. So I'm guessing somebody was shot or something. But downtown, it's almost 1 or 12:10, and it is incredible. I'm like, I forgot what this was like.
Right. I talked to a buddy of mine who I work with, and he said he picks up some part-time Uber shifts. And he said he made 700 bones on Saturday
listen,
night. I'm like, hey.
Jay Moore walked home. Jay Moore lives 4.5 miles. And he's out in the country. He walked from 9th Street because the Uber was 50 minutes and $50, and he said, I can get home in 45. He walked. I mean, how about that?
And that's a smart man right there.
He couldn't get an Uber.
Well, I'm telling you, there's the supply, the job meets the demand on Saturday night, and rightfully so. I tell you what, I was thinking about this as I was making my coffee this morning. I'm like, can you remember last year's, Purdue game? Last year's Northwestern, no. You don't really remember those games. But, man, for years, people are going to remember that Colorado game, My kids were just bouncing off the walls because they're students. And I talked to my junior in college, and I said, hey, hon, this is the first time Nebraska's ever been ranked in your college career. And I go, well, no, check that. In your college and high school career, this is the first time they've ever been ranked. It's like it's been a while, right? It's been a long time.
How on brand was it, too, that Coach Rule's presser went the way that it did? Like, would you have expected anything less than him coming across as pretty pissed?
No, it was right on brand, right? And then when then he follows up saying that Terrence Crawford was pissed too. And I was like, oh yeah,
that was the best.
That was he had so many great little snippets, right? It's like he doesn't miss a thing.
I agree, and he tells you a lot, and you really have to listen. But he does tell you a lot. He's pretty transparent, which I appreciate. And he's not going to pull any punches too. I love the fact that he says there's losing football, winning football, championship football. It makes it, it's like, I never thought of it like that, but oh my God, that is so true. And they are working their way up to championship football. And right now they're winning football. Was it perfect? No. Was it a fun night? Absolutely on Saturday, but they're still not where they need to be. They need to clean that stuff up. The second half was we can complain about the officiating, and rightfully so in the second half, but the bottom line is still they were outscored in the second half, and special teams, they better tie up some of those loose ends on special teams, because there are going to be games that come down to the wire, as we all know, as they always do in the Big Ten, and special teams is going to be the difference 9 times out of 10 games.
We're talking with Andy Kendeigh from KETV. Hey, Andy, I want to switch over to volleyball last night. Obviously, a huge matchup, first ever top 10 matchup between Nebraska and Creighton. How did you kind of process how that one went? Looked like Nebraska was up to the moment early, and then you have that incredible marathon third set that gets Creighton back into it. Really just an overall incredible volleyball match.
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I thought that Nebraska came out swinging, and I think Creighton kind of was on their heels for the early part of that match. And that third set showed me a lot. It showed me a lot about Creighton, man. They were up against the ropes, and they battled back. I mean, they were a couple points. They battled off match point a few times in that third set, and were able to extend the match. And then the fourth set, you're just like, okay, we're going 5 because Creighton dominated. So I thought it showed me a lot about both squads. One, that Creighton can take a punch and go toe to toe, and they're going to be in the mix when it comes to tournament time in December. But two, I think Nebraska kind of found themselves a little bit last night too when they were able to persevere, because it just, even though they are so talented and so deep, it doesn't feel like they're clicking on all cylinders. But at times last night, you saw like, oh, okay, this is the team that we were expecting to see, and I thought we saw that a little bit in the fifth set. And I'll tell you, fellas, when Andy Jackson plays well,
oh man,
plays well. Holy cow, she is just a force in the middle. She's incredible.
How about the electricity? Where would you put last night to Saturday night?
Oh boy. Oh yeah, I would. In the arena, I would assume, because I wasn't there last night, but at least on television, it sounded like the eruptions and the atmosphere was as good as it was at the football field. It's so intimate what they built over at the Divining Center. It is so incredible. Every point is just with explosions from the crowd when the home team scores. We talk about a home court advantage. That was pretty amazing. And there's something about when Nebraska plays Creighton, and I know that rivalries you have to have success on both sides, and it hasn't happened yet for Creighton. But Creighton has shown that they're a point or two away from getting over that hump. And one of these years they're going to get there. And I thought last night was going to be the night. But they'll have to wait another year. But man, I'll tell you what. Maybe Maybe they'll meet in December. Maybe they'll meet in the tournament. Wouldn't that be fun?
That's Andy Kendeigh from KETV. AK, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, fellas. DB, we'll see you Saturday.
We'll see you, buddy.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
It's the West Side Way as we welcome you back to the Pillar Exterior Studio stage.
Hey, you know what's coming up in about a week and a half?
Is it another breakfast?
We have another breakfast.
Man, let's go. I remember. That's the most important thing about Illinois. But here's the thing.
What?
We would like to invite you to our live breakfast. It was so good the last time. Plus, it was a lot of people, so that always makes it fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I think everybody but your friend Ryan would have passed their blood alcohol check. I'm just teasing. He was saving it for his little party. Come out and enjoy us. But I work that night.
Yeah.
And I don't eat on days that I work.
Ooh.
So I won't be indulging
until after.
Well,
you let it set for 9 hours last time.
Oh, yeah. I got no problem.
So you're fine.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that like don't listen. Bless her heart, Jessica. Did I tell you about the sandwich?
I don't think so.
So I was
on Saturday.
Yeah.
No.
So I clearly wasn't gonna eat.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's 1:30. No, it's like 1:20, and I'm like, fudge. We're not gonna get out of here.
Oh, so you
I
guys
gotta
still-
wait for Caleb.
12 more hours for you're gonna eat still.
Nothing's gonna be open.
Yeah.
And I didn't want fast food, so I text Greg and I think did I group text? Yeah. So I said, hey, Jessica, where are you? And she said, I'm in Haymarket. I said, do you mind grabbing a sandwich? She's like, sure. What do you want? And I said, the gargantuan from Jimmy, because it's right there. The gargantuan, 16 6. She said, what size? I said 16 inch. She texts back. She said, just meat and cheese. And I said, yeah, just meat and cheese. It has to last. So I didn't think anything of it. She texts back like 5 minutes later. She's like, holy blankety blank. It's $29. I was like, shoot, do you need me to Venmo you? And whatever, we figured it out. So she gets to the studio. She's like, okay, I'm going to get out of here faster than I thought. So she comes in, and this thing was like a small child's leg.
Oh, yeah. Those things are enormous.
I ate it in the car from like 12:40 to like 1. When I got home about 1, so probably 12:30 to like 1. I mean, just tore the top. I mean, I'm just shoveling it in. There was about a little bit that fits in a Ziploc bag left.
Yeah.
Knocked that off about 2:45. Yeah, I mean, it's whatever. I can eat late.
So if you're not a weirdo like DB and you can eat on days that you work like every other normal person, make sure you get to Eventbrite.
Do you know how long I'm gone?
Make sure you get to eventbrite.com, search for Hurrdat Sports Radio, get registered for the Illinois pregame breakfast. There will be great food. It's better when you don't wait 12 hours to eat it like DB.
I can't
but
wait.
It does hold up.
I am excited.
So make sure you come out and see us.
Do you know ideally what I hope happens?
What?
Since we play on Thursday? I hope we'll come back in Monday or Friday. He'll let the guys get loose. Then we'll have all day Saturday off, like as a staff.
So you can watch games all day?
And eat.
And eat all day?
Yeah. Oh, I'm like, is it weird that I used to look forward to the small victories in life?
No, you got to.
Man, if he gives us all day Saturday off and we work Friday, that's cool. Like, I put in the work early. I just
like having a day off.
Did you know how little I've seen Zoe?
I would guess not very much.
Oh, it's incredible. She said, are you going to be in the morning when I take my bath? I was like, yeah, I'll go slow. What time I get in here? I got it. Well, I didn't get here until 6:45. I waited.
Yeah. You know what little victory that I like every once in a while?
Yeah, take your Dion. It's a Dion dance, isn't it?
It is. I love it when
You're
Dion says
so
something stupid.
childish.
Shank, you play that for me?
So it's going to always be questioned, but we deserve it. When you lose, you're going to be ridiculed. You're going to be prosecuted and persecuted, and I'm good. I've been on the cross for a long time, and I'm still hanging. So it's going to.
Really, Dion?
Oh, gosh.
Really, Dion? He says he deserves it, and then he compares himself to Jesus Christ on the cross. Like, Bud, listen, okay? Nobody's coming after your family.
You're so bad.
You've won one FBS football game in a year.
You're so
a single one. You did beat an FCS team last week. A good one. Don't get me wrong. Good FCS team last week. You've won out.
Still hanging.
You've won.
So
we're still hanging on, waiting for you to win another game, Dion.
Stop. What's wrong with you?
What's wrong with him? He just compared himself to Jesus on the cross because he's losing football games.
You remind me of my man Jimmy.
Like,
talking about Sat's offense.
What are we doing?
But his name really isn't Jimmy. Do you know what he replied back to me with?
What?
He said, numbers don't lie. We're chasing excellence, are we not?
Listen.
Okay, Jimmy, I'm not talking to you anymore.
I don't know what Dion's chasing.
Listen,
I don't know.
Can I just say this without you being mad at me?
Probably not. You love Dion.
That's a lie. I
Dion.
don't think he's comparing himself to Christ. I'm saying I can't even really put it into words. I think he thinks he's been
martyred,
judged for a long time.
He's playing a martyr.
Okay.
I mean, that's what it is.
Or if you're like,
it's
if
a
you're
victim mentality.
If you're in his sphere of influence, you may be saying, yeah, I mean, people are always judging him.
Okay.
That might be what he's saying.
Oh, it might be what he's saying, but let's rewind a year, okay? Because nobody was judging a year ago. They were glossing him up pretty good.
No, they weren't. Because you know what was happening? It was like a couple of those shady disciples before they bounced and went to the bad team.
Yeah.
They were waiting for it to fail before they piled on.
Well,
it was just one.
A lot of people were glossing him up pretty good too.
Yeah, it really was. I mean,
yeah, just the Judas was not great.
Although there were some times I wanted to choke Daniel or Thomas. Oh, man,
you don't like the doubters?
My man asked a lot of questions. He constantly needed to be reassured. I'm like, bro, relax.
I like asking questions.
Are you sure?
I want to know the info.
Are you sure?
He was trying to be a Berean.
True.
It's true. You do love your Bereans.
I do. They do their own homework. They ask a lot of questions.
He was trying to get the info right from the source.
But you don't want to be a doubting Thomas.
No, there's a difference between questioning and doubting.
I don't know. He was probably trying to control the controllables.
There's also a difference. What about correcting the correctables?
He was probably making concessions.
Oh, my Lord.
He might have been emotionally compromised.
This dude is on a roll. You guys are having good days.
He eat the meat and he spit out the bones.
Okay.
Or was it a pound of flesh?
Okay. We're good.
He was very measured.
I'm just saying. What are we doing, Dion?
Why are you so mad?
Because it's ridiculous.
I understand. I get it.
If you don't understand why people are questioning you, then maybe you need to get in a different line of work.
So do you believe the stories? So we had did you see the little table with the chairs right outside our booth? Under the Big Ten Network sign?
I usually don't go that far down that hallway.
Okay. So
I stop at the food and then I go back to my seat.
There were two gentlemen there, and one of them happens to be a huge Chris Schmidt fan.
Okay.
The other guy is from here, and he's now working at Colorado.
Okay.
He's like, DB, man, you still coaching high school? And the other one was the old ball coach. He loved him some Schmidt. He's like, I'm going to wait for Chris Schmidt and this, that, and the other. So then I saw Schmidt like 10 minutes later, and I go, hey, coach is looking for you. Did he find you? He's like, yeah, we're going to get together. I was like, dang, you guys are like
two peas.
Boys. No, they're like tight.
Yeah.
So
like me and RP.
So the story goes, the dude in their sphere of influence was talking to him in the hallway, and he said, well, when the van pulled up and Shedeur and Shiloh got off, Coach Prime told them to wait to go through the crowd. And I was thinking to myself, the Sanders pulled up separate from the bus?
Yeah, there's video of it. There's video of him and Shiloh getting out of like a Mercedes Sprinter van.
It was a van. He did say van.
Yeah, it's like a Mercedes Sprinter van. It's like those luxury Sprinter vans.
That is in. I forgot all about that because you're busy trying to.
Yeah, you're trying to work.
I wasn't then. I was just leaving from telling jokes with Andy Kendeigh. So I'm walking back into the booth from the place.
Yeah,
that can't go over well.
Does any of it go over well?
Sorry.
Like, does any of it go over well? I wonder that every day. When Shedeur is like, how many times did Raiola get touched? You think that goes over well? Like, where does any of this go over well? You got a defense who actually played pretty good.
Yeah.
A Colorado defense I thought played pretty good. They hit hard. They tackled well. And they're out there and be like, oh, no, it's all about Shedeur and Travis. It's like, well.
But Travis is a good dude.
Travis is a good player.
Like,
hey, Shane, you got the Travis cut? I like Travis now.
Me too.
We're cool now.
I was the one vouching for this dude when he was wearing giraffables on the podcast. You guys were making fun of me. I was
making fun of an adult wearing a onesie, but
I'm like, he's just living life. That was a year ago. I was defending Travis Hunter.
You have the Travis cut?
They came out fast. They hit us in the mouth. We ain't had no response. That's pretty much what happened. And Nebraska's a good team, and they beat us fair and square. And we just got to come out and do better. We got to play Colorado football, and that's not Colorado football.
No discredit to the team. Good team. They played good ball. But I want to give more credit to their fan base and the way they got their stadium set up. They give you hell from the time you step out the locker room to the time you get to the field.
That environment was top 10.
Yeah, I got to give it to them.
The little light show in the fourth quarter, that was cool too. I ain't even gonna lie, that was a good little show, boy. That fans was loud on third down when you break the huddle, when you get in the huddle. I can't even think to myself how loud it was. Yeah, shout out to Nebraska.
I like that.
Say, remember when we had that conversation?
I do. With the onesie?
Yeah, I like T-Mac.
I also appreciate, because Dion's like, oh, no, the crowd didn't affect us. Travis is like, yeah, I couldn't hear myself think.
Joel with another walk-off. I can't watch TV without Dion with a duck selling insurance, a pigeon selling DirecTV, or his son selling KFC. Pretty comfortable cross to bear.
I was going to say, oh, no, not the persecution.
Don't forget the almonds.
Dude, Joel is a trip.
The only cross he's bearing is the gold one on his chest, all right? Let's leave it there. We got Mitch Sherman coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now, gas station coffee enthusiast and Nebraska writer for The Athletic, Mitch Sherman.
It's great to see you. It's been since a cold day in the corner of Memorial Stadium.
Mitch Sherman.
I wrote that down because I'm going to use it in life.
Mitch Sherman.
It's not something that you generally hear, and it's certainly not something that you see put into action.
Mitch Sherman.
It's a lot more rare than you might think that they actually say it in the way that he says it and then go do it.
Here is Mitch Sherman.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. We are joined now by our guy, Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, how are you this morning?
I'm well. How are you guys?
Oh, I'm good. My 2 cohorts here were living their best lives about 10 minutes ago at my expense. So that's always pretty fun.
Oh,
sorry
to hear that.
No, it's okay. I think I'll be all right, Mitch.
I mean, don't go start playing the victim like Dion over here, all right?
Mitch was one of those guys that that I kind of happily jogged past to get to the booth on Saturday. He was actually working. I was coming off an emotional high, Mitch. So I was.
Was I working? That's.
It seemed like you were taking it all in. I mean, how about that environment? And did you get why Dion walked all the way around to come in front of where you guys were to go back down to the other end?
Doesn't he do that? I think he comes out on the field and does a lap. Some coaches do that. They like to stretch the legs. I think that's what he was doing. Because I looked up at one point and he was coming like straight for me. Looked to my left, and I felt like if I hadn't moved, there might have been a collision. Because he was running.
He was
on
coming
that,
right down the line. I'm like, are we supposed to move?
Yeah, I didn't see him until he was about 5 feet away from me. So I took a quick step back, and he ran right on the white of the end zone, and made a hard left. And then I think five or so minutes later, he was back over there in an embrace with Bud Crawford. So. Yeah, it was quite a scene down there. A lot of star power for sure. And just the electricity in the air, the students being in their seats 90 minutes before kickoff. That place was full. It was full of juice.
Been a long time since I heard the student section utter expletives.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody about that, and it certainly happened in 14 for the Miami game. That may have been the last time.
Mitch,
that may have been the first time.
Yeah, it was going on for so who stopped him, or did they just think like, oh, we can actually be heard? This is really loud.
Well, Travis Hunter came over and danced for him.
Yeah, he did. I like Travis Hunter, and I always since the giraffe pajamas and the Pikachu, I've always liked Travis Hunter.
And if you didn't before this week, how could you not if you're a Nebraska person and you heard what he had to say about the environment and the stadium and Nebraska as a team?
He said, I couldn't even think.
Yeah, I kind of, I did. You're right, Mitch. I wasn't a huge fan until his comments about Nebraska, but I think I realized I was just holding him guilty by association.
No, you hated him because you made fun of me for liking the onesie.
No, I kind of hated him because he chose to hang out with Dion, if I'm being honest. I'm like, anybody who chooses to hang out with Dion that much, I don't know if I can roll with him. But he seems a little bit more, he seems to have more sense than his head coach, which I appreciate.
Look at the kind of player that he's trying to be at the next level. Who better to model yourself after than?
I mean, you could have gone to Florida State, but that'd have been fine.
Let me ask you something, Mitch, because you are super practical. When you watch what's going on in Boulder, and obviously Shedeur and Shiloh will be leaving, will Dion be held in a more favorable or less favorable light for other coaching or potential options?
Okay. I thought you were going to ask if he was going to be held in a more favorable or less favorable light at Colorado. And I was saying that's pretty presumptuous of you.
I was going to say, we're making a big assumption there.
Well,
Oh, in the right situation, I mean, clearly he has a lot to add and has great football knowledge, and he's a motivator.
Does he?
I was gonna say I might push back on the football knowledge part. Like maybe he doesn't impart it well. I don't look at his teams as like that guy knows what he's doing or knows what he's talking about.
Well,
like
I didn't say that he has great knowledge about running a program.
Oh, fair.
I'm saying he has great football knowledge, like on the field. I think he can diagnose what's happening at a high level. Otherwise, was it just entirely his great athleticism that allowed him to be the player that he was? I think that's selling him short. I mean, he was the Travis Hunter of his day. He was a great worker. I mean, and he was playing Major League Baseball, and so I mean, I think he's wise in the ways of the sport of football. As far as overseeing a program and getting everyone to operate on the same page, no, that's not what's going on in Boulder. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it's going to hurt his ability when his days are done there. I think it's going to hurt his ability if he were to say want to go run a program in the SEC, or a year ago at this time when Colorado was the talk of college football for reasons not like Dion is today, because it shocked the world when it beat TCU and then put a hurt on Nebraska and won an insane game against Colorado State, which is coming up here this week again. Somebody else who wants to get over on Colorado in much the same way that Nebraska wanted to this last week is Jay Norvell and his guys in Fort Collins. Last year at this time, the conversation was, okay, when he leaves, is he going to go to the SEC or the NFL? And that's very much not the conversation now. Now it's like, will he continue to coach, or is he just going to go try to get a position at the NFL organization where Shedeur lands?
Mitch, if I were to try and give Dion the benefit of the doubt here, which I know I don't do very often, so it's hard for me, but
at least you're honest.
Could I make an argument that it's actually going to be easier for him when he's not trying to coach players that he is so emotionally attached to?
That is hard.
Is he going to care as much? Is he going to want to do it? Is the question that I have. Would he want to do this if Shedeur and Shiloh and Travis Hunter weren't there? I'm not sure, because he coached when he was younger and he was getting started in coaching coming out of the NFL in Texas, and I think there were times where he wasn't coaching his kids, at least at some of the work he was doing. But I don't know.
He got into coaching originally because kids weren't being coached right. Right? Like,
it's ironic.
That's it.
It is pretty ironic.
I'm not making.
I know you're right. I remember that. Yeah.
So expound on that a little bit, Mitch, because it does, and I think that's what drives Ravi crazy, other people crazy. It seems like what we see is so contradictory to what we hear.
Yeah, it's ego driven, and he wants to. Somebody this week made the comment that he is he's the personal coach for a select few on the Colorado team, and that is his priority more so than being the head coach at Colorado. And I don't know if it's I'm guilty here of spreading that, but I'm really just repeating what I heard, and I know that doesn't matter. I said it. I don't know if that's fair to him, but whatever. That's the narrative right now. Like, that's what it looks like. I think he's brought that on himself. Whether that's the case or not, and whether he cares about the progress in the future, in the ability to learn of his middle linebacker or his running back, I don't know. Without being there inside, I honestly don't know. But that's not what it looks like when you pass by once a year.
Mitch, let me ask you about how you kind of think this game looks for Nebraska in sort of the grand scheme of things, because I think a lot of us look at Colorado and go, hey, that's probably not going to end up being a very good football team. Like, best case scenario, they make a bowl game.
You still had to win it.
Right. And that's kind of the juxtaposition, right? Is, hey, this is not a great football team, but it was a big game in a big moment, and Nebraska's failed there a lot against both good and bad football teams. Like, how do you kind of weigh how you think this impacts Nebraska long term when within the context of who Colorado likely is?
Yeah, you got to crawl before you can walk, and Nebraska needed to jump that. Nebraska needed to get up off the ground and win that game. I mean, there will be bigger challenges ahead for sure for this program. You know, Matt Rule knows that. His players, I think, understand that now. But you don't just go straight to Ohio State. And in fact, there's some steps along the way between Colorado and Ohio State. There's several levels that you have to jump up before you're ready to go and compete on the big stage in the conference that Nebraska's in. So that was an important one to win. If not so much because of the opponent and what Colorado presented, because of the moment that it was, and because of the attention and the spotlight. Nebraska's failed in those moments a lot in recent years, I think in part just because of the gravity of the whole thing, the weight of it. And I'm not so sure that you saw it's 28-0 at halftime. It's like this was a laugher. You know, there's some scenarios in some, you plug in some different variables in that game, and I think it looks a lot different, even with Colorado being as rattled and as affected by the environment as it was. Like the Nebraska coaches, yeah, sure. Nebraska coaches and of specific players, like Nebraska coaches have spent a lot of time this week singing the praises of Dylan Raiola and talking about how the rest of the offense needs to match his intensity. And, you know, I think about how would that game have looked if Nebraska just had average or below average quarterback play, and it would have looked a lot different because it wouldn't have been 28-0 at halftime. It might have been 17-7. It might have been 14-7, something like that. You commit a turnover, you can't execute the 2-minute drill. You know, another mistake here or there, and 28-0 looks a lot different. And if that's the case, we've seen games like that where Nebraska is clearly the better team, you know, doesn't fully take advantage of that. And in the second half, things start to go wrong. And here you are again at the end of the game, and it's within one score, and Nebraska comes out on the wrong side. This game wasn't all that much different from being like that, but it had a difference-making player in the right spot.
Now you're talking to a guy that was benched for being ill-prepared coming off of a big week previous. So I didn't embrace the old preparation thing heading into the next one. How important is it, or is this sort of referendum is way too hard, but maybe a little bit of a litmus test for Coach Rule and his ability to get them dialed back in based on how candid his press conference was on Monday. That didn't sound like a lot of coach speak to me.
No, he got dealt. Of course, he would have wanted to win that game 42-7. That would have been more enjoyable coming off the field on Saturday night. It was still enjoyable. He was, as he said, he was fired up, but you would have felt better if you won the game the way that he thought they could. And he said it multiple times. He thought they could have won that game by 30 points or something in that neighborhood. It wouldn't have left him with the same kind of ability to get his players' attention this week if that had been the case. So it's kind of a win-win for him in that you win the game, you're 2-0, and you can fully address your team and get your points across, and they're going to feel it. They're not, oh, hey coach, look, we won by 5 touchdowns. Like, let's lay off. And that could lead to a letdown. I don't think so at all. I think the offense feels an urgency to step it up and to go out and block on the perimeter, to win battles down the field as receivers, to get open, to run. I'm talking only about the receivers, but it's all over the field. The offensive line, I think, is going to feel some urgency in this game. It's not that Nebraska wants to make a statement or send a message this Saturday night in the same way that it did last week, but in that's still there. That's I think going to be a big focus for Nebraska going into this game is let's show who we really are as a team, because I don't think people saw that for 60 minutes last week.
talking with Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, as a lot of the conversations have been about the offense and either how it didn't look in the second half or how it did look in the first half. But I'd like to kind of talk about the defense here for a second, because if you look at this Colorado team, for whatever flaws it has, it can be super explosive offensively. We saw that last year. The only games that it really struggled offensively for the most part were against pretty high-level opponents. How did that game make you feel about the defense versus how you maybe thought either before the season or coming into week 2?
Yeah, I don't feel a whole lot different about the defense. I thought highly of the defense before the Colorado game, and they confirmed some thoughts about what they're going to be able to do when they want to get after a quarterback. Nebraska didn't make Colorado one-dimensional. Colorado was one-dimensional on its own with what its offense presented. There's just not the threat of a real run game there. So a lot of times you've got to turn a team into a one-dimensional system, and that was just there from the beginning. Colorado couldn't run the ball in the first possession of the game, so it kind of made Nebraska's work in that sense easy. And Nebraska did more than just the same as last year with Shedeur Sanders. Nebraska got home on the pressures. A lot of times last year, I thought Nebraska put pressure on the quarterback and didn't necessarily get home as often as it would like to. In 2 games against Colorado, it's gotten home a lot. So I think they're going to be able to continue to do that. So my thought about the defense is on the defensive line, they've taken some steps, some important steps in adding size, in getting in better shape, in building even more depth, and they're going to be able to do what you saw, dominate some teams up front consistently. Like it's a very good defensive line. And then I think Nebraska can hang its hat on stopping the run. It hasn't been challenged much in that area through 2 games because the 2 opponents who've come in haven't tried to run the ball. That's going to change this week, and it's really going to change in the Big Ten. So I'm bullish on the Nebraska defense because I think they can do everything well. I think they can. Their signature will be stopping the run, and they look to me like this year they're going to be better at putting pressure on the quarterback.
So, Mitch, when you're taking a look at, because I want to be careful here, and so I love to set the tone early so we can't go back and say whatever. So, a couple of things here in the last 10 minutes. You said we were talking about, hey, Nebraska relative to how Colorado ends up. Hey, Nebraska playing well relative to their lack of success in the past. Let me take it one step further when we get into the totality of Nebraska's evaluation. How careful do we need to be that we don't change our expectation levels based on what the Big Ten Conference turns out to be? Because so far, it's vastly different in a multitude of ways than we thought in the preseason. I just don't want us to be allowed to go back and say, well, yeah, but I like consistency going forward.
Yeah, there's some things in the Big Ten that look different than what we thought going in, but I don't think it's dramatically different for Nebraska and what's on Nebraska's schedule. Oregon is the biggest, I think. The team that needs to be most reconsidered because of how it's struggled to win 2 games. Still 2-0, but it hasn't looked like the team that's like the 3rd or 4th best team in the country in doing it. Well, Nebraska doesn't play Oregon this year. So, there's other teams out there that look better than what we expected. And I'd put USC at the top of that list. Nebraska plays USC this year. So I don't think there's any reason to reevaluate. I mean, you can split hairs on Iowa and Wisconsin, but they weren't expected to be juggernauts. At least I didn't think that. I mean, people talked about Iowa in the playoff conversation. That may still come to pass, probably not, after losing, the margin for error for teams like Nebraska, Iowa, Wisconsin is slim. And if you lose a game in September, that's, to a non-conference opponent, that's not going to bode well for your resume to be one of the 12 standing at the end. So, okay, Iowa is a step below where we thought the Hawks would be right now, but that's still an extremely difficult game for Nebraska on Friday night in November. I haven't seen evidence to this point, despite the Big Ten looking different than what we thought it was going to look like in July. I haven't seen evidence to this point at all that makes me reassess what my expectation is for Nebraska in the league.
Mitch, is there anything in your mind that moves the needle with Nebraska re-entering the rankings? I mean, I know it's a kind of just a measure of progress from where this program has been, so it matters in that sense. But I guess on what scale does that type of thing matter?
I think it matters just in creating exposure nationally. And like Nebraska has become like overnight, and I wrote about this today on The Athletic, like overnight, this team that's awake again in college football. And, people want to buy in. And I think it's why the voters who determine the rankings are like eager to put Nebraska in the polls. Like when you get to that, filling out those final 5 to 7 lines as you make your poll on Sundays, or Saturday nights, like Nebraska enters your mind in like almost kind of an emotional response, because it's like, oh, this is you romanticize, like this is Nebraska. Like, look at that stadium. Look at the, how much fun that looked like. And the defense is flying around. I mean, they deserve to be ranked. Like they looked like a ranked team, certainly for the first half of that game on Saturday, but some of it is because it's who Nebraska is. So that matters. Like that perception matters. It matters in recruiting. It matters in just building this thing the way that Matt Rule wants to build it, and creating like an aura around the program. Like they're going to run out of the tunnel on Saturday night, and they're going to have more swag than they've had in the past in situations like this. Like you've played a week 3 game against an FCS opponent. It might be viewed as a snooze fest in some other situations, but no, now it's like you're the number 23 team in the country. You've got this freshman quarterback that everybody's talking about. Like there's eyes on you nationally that weren't there in other situations like this. So the national ranking, I think it plays into that entire conversation.
Mitch, let me get you out of here on this. If you're let's go rapid fire so I can take advantage of the 60 seconds. If you feel good, the same, or if you're this particular team's head coach going forward. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Oregon.
I don't feel as good. I feel worse than I would have.
Iowa.
If I'm Iowa's coach, I feel worse. I think Kirk Ferentz feels the same.
Minnesota.
Ooh. The same.
Wisconsin.
I feel worse about Wisconsin going forward.
Michigan.
Worse, absolutely.
Ohio State.
The same.
I'll give you 2 toughies here. Rutgers.
I think I feel better.
Illinois.
I definitely feel better about Illinois.
Okay. It's weird, right? That's kind of setting the narrative for how we feel. Outside of Minnesota, we'll play those guys, right? It's like, or Michigan, but all right, Mitch. I like it. You're good with rapid fire. Not bad. Not bad.
Mitch, we appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. We've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and it's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Warhorse Sportsbook is the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets, whether it's at the Sportsbook in Lincoln or here in Omaha. They've got you covered with nearly every major sporting event and all types of betting, live bets, parlays, in-game props, whatever you can think of. Warhorse likely has you covered. No bets, no glory.
I know one of the things that you want to bet on is whether Coach Sanders has a job next year. Don't you? Don't you, Ravi?
I don't know, because
what kind of odds would you get?
I think he will have a job next year. I don't know what job that is, right? If I had to bet on him being at Colorado next year, I probably would need an enormous amount of plus money to do that. Because I don't.
Ravi Lulla here for plus 450 that Dion remains in Boulder.
You don't think that they love him there? And I'm not talking.
No, I don't.
But I'm talking like the university itself.
I think so. They played the short game, and they knew this going in. When you get in bed like that, and you're going to be here for a good time, not a long time.
And
like
they were desperate, so they were willing to take the risk.
Right, so
it brings attention to them.
They're going to click the cash register.
but they're going to be worse off when he leaves than they were when he got there.
Now, will they, though? I just had this argument at the barbershop Friday.
Okay.
Remember, Colorado was awful.
They were 1-11.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
they're terrible.
That was pretty bad. Will they be worse? They're going.
Maybe not worse, but I don't know that they're better.
So I made the case, and most people don't think of it like this, especially with where I was, because they don't really think recruiting. You will have to get back into the state of Colorado for some goodwill. Nebraska knows all too well about this.
100%.
Where you have to get back into the state and have somebody that is willing to, just get one of them old school fertilizers and hit every square inch of the yard, because they got to grow those relationships back.
That's why we love when we see Ed Foley at every high school, even if he doesn't have prospects.
So all that old shucksy thing, and Foley, that served a purpose.
And that's why, outside of the fact that Christian Jones is a really good football player, that's why that matters. That's why getting the number one prospect in the state 3 years in a row matters.
You need to have, if he moves on. And listen, this is talk radio, so we can always speculate. And I just did what I hate doing. You have to get back into the state. So I think they're worse in state than when he got the job. But the program overall as a whole, I don't know if I would make that case.
So here's my argument for it, right? Are
you still one plus 450?
I want more than that. That he's back next year? You better give me 4 digits on that. I need plus 1,000 or better.
Well,
if I'm putting money on,
he'd bet on himself and just be miserable for the year.
Fair.
I would. No, I'm just playing. I've gone winless. It sucks.
I'm good.
Cue the mayor.
It's a tough cross to bear with all those endorsements.
Hey, how many times did Raiola get hit?
How many times did he get touched? No. So here's the argument I would make that they're worse off.
Still hanging.
They have, and I could see an argument that financially they might be better off because of all the attention and all that's come with Dion. But I don't know how much of that money is going to Dion because of the endorsements and things like that, and how much of it's actually going to Colorado. That I don't know. But I would say, you said they're playing the short game, and I agree. I don't know that I can point to a single thing that Dion has done to set up Colorado for longer term success, because he's not recruiting high school guys for the most part, for the large part. It's not like the high school guys he has recruited or transfer guys that he's recruited are likely to stick around Colorado when he leaves or if he leaves. So I don't know.
Would you try to make the case that he's elevated the profile of the job?
I don't know.
They got new gear.
They do have new gear, but I don't know. Again, with all the support and stuff, is that support, financial, whatever, support that stays with Colorado once Dion's gone? Or is it just there because Dion's there? Because if it's not there after he's gone, then the profile of the job isn't any better than it was before. There's a reason Colorado made sense to hire Dion.
But here's the thing you're forgetting, my man.
What's that?
They're in a new conference.
Yeah, Big 12.
So you're in better position to move forward if you get a competent adult. And I'm not that he's incompetent, but what I'm saying is that understands the landscape.
How to run a program.
Yeah, I'm just, and this is partly because I want him out of Missouri. But if Eli Drinkwitz goes to Colorado, they're going to win.
Yeah, but Missouri's a better job than Colorado.
But just hear my point though.
Okay.
You could get a guy that has a similar thought process. What's made Drink good? Drink has canvassed the region. He
owns Missouri.
He's everywhere.
He has planted Missouri's flag.
And there's enough good football players regionally where if you get somebody that could invest, it could just take the right person. Now, is Colorado going to be scorned or spurned that students actually started going to games again and now it's not fun because they're not winning? Like, will they go back to not caring and smoking bud or whatever it is that they do? And
skiing,
skiing. Yeah. There's lots of things to do, right?
Yeah. That's why places that are fun to live can be hard jobs.
There's other pro teams there, right?
Yeah.
Nuggets and Broncos, and
it's the same reason you have trouble in like
Avalanche.
Yeah,
you had your funny moment at my expense.
No,
Yeah, it was funny, but if you're not making fun of me, then it's probably not going to be as funny. So you just don't get to say Avalanche. Eat the meat and spit out the bones.
Pound of flesh.
My man.
Anywho,
those jobs are hard though. Where there's other stuff to do, those jobs are hard.
I feel you.
Miami, LA, like those are tough jobs. Although there's 2 teams in LA. I don't know if you remembered or not.
Yeah.
Us and USC.
Will it be in?
I don't know if it's worse. I don't think it's better.
I don't know, man.
I don't think if anything's raised the profile of Colorado, I think it's the Big 12, not Dion. Now, if you want to say, hey,
but you do have to. You can't just be dismissive of that, though. They are in a new conference,
right? Yeah, that's fair.
You can't say but.
No, I don't know that Dion had anything to do with that.
It doesn't matter though, right? Because if you can't just take you can't always have the bad be applicable to him being there. So sometimes you have to be able to look at the good too, whether it was a direct correlation of him or not, because the bad works the same way.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think, to be fair, I think Colorado was a bad job before Dion got there.
Okay.
And I don't know that he's changed that, is mostly my point. I'm not saying it's his fault that it's a bad job.
I got no, okay.
I don't think it's
because we kind of made it Dion specific.
Right. I meant more, I don't know that he's done anything to improve the job.
And if you're going to use Dion specific to say why he didn't do a good job, then you have to add, okay, well, what could make it advantageous?
Yeah, in a new conference.
Yeah.
Big 12 is a better spot than the Pac-12. But I sit here and look, okay, Colorado was a bad job before he got there. That's why they were willing to take the chance on a guy like Dion, right?
Mm.
Like, there was a lot of schools that probably weren't going to take that plunge because of the unknowns there, right?
And I only said Drinkwitz because I want him out of Missouri.
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
Well, I'm just looking at some of these jobs that make them open next year, and everybody's trying to pencil Tony White in somewhere, and I'm like, you guys just chill. But
I think a really good job's gonna have to come open for Tony White to leave.
Yeah,
I mean a really good job, because I think he knows he's got it good here. I think he knows the defense is going to continue to get better even as he replaces guys. They've done a really good job of bringing those guys along. And I think he understands what Coach Rule was talking about last year in the offseason, where it's like, hey, don't take a job just to take a job, right? That's the biggest mistake a lot of up-and-comers make. We saw Turner Gill do this.
And I know
with the Kansas job.
You're going to laugh. I'm going to save this.
It's okay. I like to laugh.
Okay.
Nebraska's very senior-laden defensively, right? Upperclassmen. I don't know about productivity because these guys are painting it on pretty thick right now early. They could be more athletic defensively in a year.
Oh, I 100% believe that. I think a year or two from now.
I'm going to leave that right there.
Yeah.
And
Tony White knows that.
Right.
100% he knows that.
I know it sounds ridiculous because they're putting up some really good numbers.
I don't think it's ridiculous because can you imagine what Ernie Shaver or every time Vincent Shavers is going to look like in a year?
Yeah.
He looks like a freak show now.
Yeah.
He's a true freshman.
Oh,
Willis McGay, he played one play and he's like, strip sack, see ya. What's he going to look like in a year?
You get another year of Princewell, Cam.
Those two looks like grown men. What are those guys going to look like in a year?
Like they're going to be. They got a chance.
It's going to be freaky back there.
One more year.
One more year. That's Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. We're going to talk to Russell.
Plus 850.
I need more than that. I need at least 1,000 to bet on Dion staying. We got more coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Stonehouse back deep to our left. DeAndre Carter.
Pressure blocked on the ground. Picked up to the 10, to the 5, to the end zone for the touchdown on the block punt by the Bears.
Play action take to it. Back to throw. Wants a deep one. Downfield. He's got Tyreek. Tyreek at the 40, 35, 39. Down the sideline. He goes. Touchdown, Miami.
Wrapping up the show here on a Wednesday. Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFR, and Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are joined now by Russell Baxter. He covers the NFL for Fansided. Russell, what's going on, man?
Oh, I don't know. Pretty interesting week one. Saw a little reemergence of the running game around the league. And then some pretty stunning surprises. You remember the AFC North, the team that had 4 winning teams last year?
Yes.
3 of them lost, and the one that won didn't score a touchdown.
Hey, so I want to stay right there because I'm a diehard Steelers fan, and I was facetiously saying, let's start the playoffs tomorrow. But on a serious note, though, if you're looking at that, there's 2 things we know. The Bengals notoriously start slow, and the Browns appear to be in big trouble outside of a quarterback change. Which of those 2 teams changes that trend the quickest?
Well, Cincinnati's going to have a chance full this week, obviously, at Kansas City, even though, history tells us they have played the Chiefs very, very tough, especially when Joe Burrow plays and so on. I would think it would be them because I agree with you. Something seems to be a little off with the Cleveland Browns. And it's more than just Deshaun Watson.
I agree.
Defense and special teams. Dallas played a pretty complete game for a team that was in the news all off season about when we're going to sign CD Lamb and when we're going to sign Dak Prescott. Well, they got Dak Prescott signed, and last week they got Lamb signed. And Dak was obviously so excited that him and the Cowboys went out and did a number on the Browns at Cleveland, a team that you will remember was the number 1 ranked defense in the league last year.
Russell, I'm curious about the 49ers because, like my guy DB here, I'm a diehard. But how worried should the rest of the NFC West be that even without Christian McCaffrey, without an in-shape Trent Williams, that the 49ers still look like they could go out and put a number on people?
Oh, I think they've been worried for a couple of years, to be honest with you. They had a streak going in terms of divisional wins, and I think it ended last year in Week 18 when they sat some people, and the Rams wound up beating them in San Francisco, and I think that's what got the Rams into the playoffs. They have dominated the division, and that's worrisome for any team that's able to go out there and do that. Kansas City had a streak like that as well, and they stumbled a couple times last year. They lost at Denver. They lost at home at Christmas to the Raiders. But, yeah, I mean, listen, the 49ers are built right. They're built in the trenches. And, they have a very, very adequate offense and a phenomenal offensive play caller who stresses balance. And that's what it's really all about. I mean, I know it's really easy to talk about quarterbacks. Joe Burrow beat, Deshaun Watson. Yeah, I don't know about you, but, it's not tennis. Dion Borg didn't beat Jimmy Connors on Sunday. Okay? So you have to look at the complete game. I think there are people in our business who fall very, very short on that. And it's about playing you don't play the quarterback. You play the team. And we saw that all around. I mean, is there any better evidence that running game and physical football still exists than what happened in Cincinnati last week? How many people gave the New England Patriots a chance of winning that game on Sunday?
You only had 2 300-yard passers. In its totality for statistical output, it was the lowest week 1 in some years in the NFL from a passing standpoint. Russell, the old running back in me is still wondering why we can't pay running backs more. No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
but I agree with you, though. I completely agree.
Listen, the running backs had a nice day. There were 7 100-yard rushing performances on Sunday, although I know, obviously, Lamar Jackson was one of them. But I believe that's the highest total since there were 8 in opening week. I should say the highest total on an opening weekend in 10 years. I think it was 2014. There were 8 of them. Okay. So, and listen, you have to acknowledge the running quarterbacks. Okay. Because that's very much a big part of this game right now. One thing we also saw on Sunday is the hoopla surrounding the rookie quarterback. It kind of reminded me in a different vein of how some of the WNBA veterans were warning Caitlin Clark about, you're in the big game now, and she took her lumps early, and obviously she's phenomenal. But it was pretty forgettable days for Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, and Jaden Daniels, to be honest with you. The Bears' offense didn't score a touchdown.
Yeah.
I mean, they wound up winning that game on a block. If you played the highlight, they had a block punt. They had a pick six. I think Caleb Williams had a 2-point conversion. But, welcome to the NFL. I know it sounds corny, but listen, the game it's funny. The pros talk about how the game speeds up from preseason to the regular season, and then how much it speeds up from the regular season to the postseason. So it was a little bit of an indoctrination for those rookie quarterbacks.
Okay, so if and I'm not counting him as a rookie per se, but of the young guys that can sometimes fool the fantasy football experts, who do you like more going forward, Jaden Daniels or Richardson?
Or who?
Richardson.
Oh, I think I like Jaden Daniels. There's a certain poison. There's an explosiveness to Anthony Richardson. Okay, but there seems to be more of a calmness to Jaden Daniels. And one thing you learn about, I'll go back to when Ben Roethlisberger was a rookie. When Tom Brady got thrown in, he wasn't a rookie when he got thrown in 2001.
Handed the ball off and don't turn it over.
That's right. And eventually Tom Brady learned the game. And he learned a lot of that from Bill Belichick for people who want to separate the two. But that's what he learned about being a professional football player, a lot from Bill Belichick. And eventually they turned over the reins to Tom Brady. And suddenly Tom Brady's throwing 50 touchdown passes, which he wouldn't have done earlier. It's funny. The 3 Super Bowls that the Patriots won in the first 4 years of Brady being the starter, he never threw 30 touchdown passes, much less 40 or 50. He never even threw 30. Okay? They had the running game in 2004. It was a lot of Corey Dillon. It's balanced. That's one of the reasons Brady, I think, wanted to go to Tampa. He was looking for a balanced football team because balance eventually is what wins. I kid about this all the time. The greatest offensive coordinator in the history of football is actually Mr. Miyagi because he stressed balance to Danielson.
We're talking with Russell Baxter on the NFL. Russell is what? Okay, so threw me off with a Mr. Miyagi there. If you had to say after 1 week whether the Sam Darnold experience in Minnesota is something that's replicable or just opponent specific against what appears to be a very bad Giants team, which way are you leaning?
Well, I think probably somewhere in the middle. I remember when Sam was down in Carolina, he got off to a decent start and then came the turnovers. Now he's going to be pressed this week, obviously, with San Francisco coming in. Although some might remember that the Vikings beat the 49ers on a Monday night last year in Minnesota. And that was in the middle of the Niners' 3-game losing streak after they had gotten off to such a good start. I mean, the talent is there. And again, Kevin O'Connell is a good play caller. He runs a balanced attack. Them getting Aaron Jones because the Packers went in a different direction was not the worst thing in the world. And Brian Flores' defense, even though the rankings weren't spectacular last year, they were much improved from the year before. So I'm not sure. I mean, I think Sam is obviously very capable of doing some good things and then also some bad things. And let's not forget, he did spend a year with the 49ers last year, so it's not like they don't know him pretty well.
How much? I know he played against his brother, but how much did Bryce Young give you David Carr vibes?
Oh, shit. I don't know what kind of vibes Bryce Young was giving off. And they wet the bed far on every aspect of the game.
It's incredible.
Okay, there were a lot of people who were very down on the Saints. So if you would have told a lot of people that the Saints would score more points than anyone in the first week of the season, you would have probably gotten pretty long odds on that. But he looked rattled. He looked disheveled. Even in the 2 games they won last year, I think. Funny enough, they beat Houston last year, which how many people saw that coming? So it just shows you it's not all about the quarterback. There are so many other ways to win. And, they were miserable on defense. And here comes Jim Harbaugh and a running game, which had a spectacular day against the Raiders.
They're in trouble.
If Carolina is not careful, they might be getting ready to earn the top pick in the draft. And it's a long ways away for the second straight year. And of course, last year they had it and they couldn't use it because they had traded it to the Bears.
That's Russell Baxter, covers the NFL for Fansided. We appreciate it, Russell. We'll talk again soon.
You got it.
That's all for Hurrdat Sports Radio for today. We'll be back tomorrow.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.